Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome back to day 2 of the Marketing Masterclass. Just having a quick look then at today's program, we're going to start off with getting the most out of Facebook ads. We're going to move on to a bit of strategy and gaining marketing clarity. We're going to be talking about your website and how a lot of the traffic is potentially wasted. We'll then look at mastering presentations in the afternoon session, a little bit about LinkedIn, which we talked about yesterday, and then some crucial considerations for webinars from yours truly at the end of the day to finish us off. So I'm going to bring Caroline Thomas into the conversation, who's the founder of the Social Accelerators, although I know you're rebranding in the new year because you do offer a lot more than just social, don't you, Caroline?
I do, yes.
Excellent. So if you'd like to share your screen and bring up your talk, and then I will disappear into the background and look forward to getting some top tips from you.
Thanks a lot, Paul, and good morning, everybody. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes, great. Okay, so my name's Caroline Thomas and my business is the Social Accelerators, and we are a company that started with our roots in social media, which is why we're called the Social Accelerators. We've been around for 10 years now. We've played with lots and lots and lots of different techniques and theories, and we've spent thousands and thousands of our own money and our clients' money on Facebook adverts. And Facebook adverts, I hear so many things about Facebook adverts. So when Paul said to me, what would you like to talk about today? I said, I'd really love to talk to you all about Facebook ads, because I know that they really work, but I know that they give a lot of people a lot of challenges. And one of the things that I hear most when I'm talking to people is the fact that Facebook ads just don't work. Now, there is 1,000,001 reasons about why Facebook ads don't work for certain people or haven't worked for certain people. And I'm going to go through 5 of those today. But the key to remember is that you do need to give it a go. You do need to have a budget, and you do need to be really, really clear on what you're promoting and how you're going to promote it. And most importantly, who you're going to promote it to. So these tips are purely about Facebook adverts. You're going to hear later from lots of other experts, and straight after me is Joe, and Joe's going to be talking to you more about the messaging itself and the emotion. So this is really just about the Facebook ads platform itself. Now, we've got lots of different people here from lots and lots and lots of different size businesses, people with no experience to people with lots of experience on Facebook ads. So I'm just going to take you through the 5 top tips that's going to suit almost everybody. And the first one is, please don't boost your posts. Now, when you're on Facebook and you've got a Facebook business page, you're going to see lots of different calls to action. For example, I just screenshot this one here. This is my about page on my Facebook page, and it says promote local business. Now, if I was to click on promote local business, it would tell me, for example, to promote my business to everybody in the local area. Now, yes, we do want people to know about our businesses. We do want people to know about our products, our services, our courses, our events. But the problem is that not everybody is interested in what you do. And if you click boost post, you don't have the opportunity to do the targeting that you need to do to give you the best results. And really, the boost post is just a way for Facebook to make money if you're not so aware of how to use the Facebook ad platform. So if you've ever boosted a post and you think it hasn't worked for me, or wow, I've got hundreds of views, or I've had hundreds of likes, but nothing's actually happened, it's probably because your targeting hasn't been quite right. So let's use this as an example. So let's imagine that I was going to promote my local business purely just to all the people in Stamford-le-Hope. The likelihood is that most people in Stamford-le-Hope don't have business, and yet my clients are obviously other businesses. Let's imagine that there's an accountant that was to promote their business or was to boost a post. Really, you can't narrow your audience because it only gives you 10 options. So please, from now on, don't boost your post. From now on, please use the Facebook Ads Manager. And that's what I want to come on to. I want to come on to about knowing your audience. And I know Joe's going to cover this off far more in depth in the next session. But if we show our ads to everybody, we're going to spend lots of money, or maybe not lots of money. Let's imagine we only have a budget of £5 a day. If we've only got a budget of £5 a day, but we're showing our advert to, let's say, for example, the whole town. And I'm going to use the local, there's a couple of examples that I've got, but let's say, for example, that I show my ad to the whole town. We've already identified that that is not my target audience. So we really, really need to get clear on who our target audience is. And I know Joe's going to take you through more of that later. But the reason that we want to know who our target audience is and to be very specific is that we can find them far more easily on Facebook. So I want you to think about, who is your dream customer? Who is the customer that's most likely to buy from you again and again, to refer you to others, and to give you great reviews for all your products or your services or your courses or your events? So don't show your ads to everyone. Be clear who your audience is. You can't sell to everybody. So let's take an example of a high street store. Now, I know that high street is having a really, really tough time at the moment. And when lockdown's over, there's some things that high street stores can do to make it really easy for themselves. So the first thing is that you can target all kinds of different people on Facebook. You can target people who live in a location, who were recently in a location, who were in a location and live there. So first off, you need to be really clear on what you want that person to be doing. Do you want them to be living there? Do you want them to be just passing by? And then I want you to think about what it is that you sell and what interests that your target market might have. So we can narrow our audience by location. We can narrow our audience by their age. So who is most likely to be your ideal customer? We can narrow our audience by thousands and thousands of different options on Facebook. Now, when I talk about narrowing audiences, one of the biggest mistakes I see is that people try to build the biggest audience possible. So let's take, for example, expert webinars today. Let's imagine that we were looking at their target audience on Facebook. So anybody who was wanting to turn up today is going to be in the marketing industry. So they're going to be in the marketing sector. They might work for specific employers, specific big employers, if we wanted to target corporates. They might be business managers or business owners. So what we have to do is we have to look at all of those job roles that people might have. Now, and they might be self-employed and they might be freelancers. Now, if we were to put all of those into one audience, you're going to find your audience is huge. So what we need to do is we need to narrow the audience, because we all just have a marketing budget. And especially in the times that we're in now, marketing budgets are becoming smaller. So we need to get smarter about how we target our audience within the Facebook ads platform. So let's imagine that we're going to target corporates as an example. So we might decide that we're going to choose all of the names of the businesses. So our first audience that we create is going to be, you're going to click, for example, demographic, then you're going to click work, and then you're going to click employer name, and you can type in all of the large corporate names. So that will then target everybody that works in that company or in those companies. But because today is all, and yesterday was all about marketing, what we would then want to do is to narrow our audience. And if you click on the narrow the audience button, you'll have another set of choices to make. So then we might choose everybody that's within marketing. So at the top, our first objective is to find all the employees that work for that particular company or those particular companies. And then our second objective is going to be everybody that's in marketing. So we use all the marketing job titles. And then we could even narrow it further. We might decide that we want them to be a specific, so we talked about job title, in a specific location and age. We've already talked about that. So we've covered everything that we needed to cover about that. So let's move on. What I want you to understand is that you can get really, really, really specific when you're narrowing your audience on Facebook to make sure that you're hitting the right audience that you really want to do business with and is most likely to take action. Sorry, the third thing I wanted to say was that if we've got everybody that's in corporate and everybody that's in marketing, we might then choose to narrow it even further by everybody that's interested in webinars, so that they would actually show up. And we know that they're going to be the most likely to show up. So that means that they're the warmest audience. The other mistake that I see people making a lot of times on Facebook, and I see this every day, is that they put out one post on Facebook that they use through the Facebook Ads Manager platform. And all of a sudden they think that that one advert is going to make them lots of money and get them lots of customers. The first thing to point out is that now they're saying it takes 9 touches before a company or a person is even really aware of your company, your product, your service, your event or your course. So we need to make sure that we're taking our clients on a journey through Facebook. We're not just saying, come and buy. That's like walking into a bar and going up to someone and say, let's go on a date, and you haven't even spoken to them yet. So there's 3 different objectives within Facebook. There's awareness, there's consideration, and there's conversion. For the conversion part, you'll need to make sure that you've got the Facebook Pixel installed on your site. And one of the challenges that we have in the UK with GDPR is that people can opt out of the Facebook Pixel. So we need to make sure that we're not only creating custom audiences for conversions using the Facebook Pixel, we also need to be creating that from content that we're producing within Facebook itself, because they can't opt out of that. So let's take, for example, we've decided exactly who our target market is. Then we need to think about what we want them to do and what our budget is and how much we're prepared to pay to get a customer. Because obviously if we have very deep pockets, we can get even more customers. And we also need to think about the return on investment on our adverts. So if you're a business that hasn't got as much marketing budget right now, your first advert could become a traffic advert where you're sending them off to a landing page or a part of your website that is far more specific about what you do. Or you could run a video view ad, or you could run an engagement ad. Now, the part about GDPR that I really want to drive home is that they can opt out of the Facebook Pixel. So, you know, when you go to a website now and you click on, I don't give my consent, or I don't accept cookies, it means that they won't be accepting the Facebook Pixel cookie, which makes retargeting traffic on web pages harder than it was before. So by using engagement or video views as your objective, means that they're doing the action that you want them to do within Facebook. And because they've agreed to Facebook terms and conditions, we can actually far easier retarget someone through their Facebook actions. So, excuse me one moment, please. So when I talk about retargeting, I talk about the fact that someone has seen you, they've heard about you, they've heard about your product, your service, your course, you've given some introduction, and then the next lot of ads that you want to run after that would be a conversion ad. And a conversion ad is where you actually do the call to action. So come and buy from me, come and sign up from me, click buy now, click sign up. And that's what the conversions are for. And when we're running retargeting ads, We're running retargeting ads based on something that they have already done. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And the next thing to think about is the placements of our ads. Now, Facebook are very cunning and they're very good at making money for themselves. They're also very good at making money for other people. However, we need to understand our customers and their behavior on Facebook. Everybody wants to be in the newsfeed. And when I talk about the newsfeed, I talk about when you've got your phone in your hand and you're scrolling through Facebook, or they're on the desktop and they're scrolling through Facebook. That is becoming one of the most expensive placements. And the reason it's becoming one of the most expensive placements is because everybody wants to be there. So think about where your target audience go. Where are they using their devices? What else are they doing beyond Facebook? So if you were to place your advert on Facebook, that's going to show in the news feed. You might have the opportunity to show it in the right-hand column. And right-hand column, people think, oh, no one looks at Facebook on a desktop anymore. But whilst everybody's working from home, we've seen a significant increase in a click on an ad that's placed on the right-hand side because they're viewing Facebook on their desktops when they should be working. You might decide to place your advert into the Facebook marketplace. Now, if it's a product that you sell, that can be a really good idea. But if you've got a free course or an introduction course or something that you've got as what we call a lead hook to get people to buy more, then, or to get to know you, to begin to consider you, then you could place that in the marketplace. But if you're if you've got very, very high-end products and services, I would encourage you not to place them in the Facebook marketplace, because you're going to look, your product is going to look much more expensive alongside the other things that you see in Facebook marketplace, which are usually secondhand goods that people are selling very cheaply. So we really need to think about where we're placing our adverts. If it's a video, you can place it within someone else's video, and you can make sure that, and you can show your advert within, so that when someone's watching a video that it would show at the bottom. But I find that those ones don't really work so well. Not so many people click on them. And most of those are app ads because they have a lot more budget to spend. You might decide to place your adverts on Instagram. Now, Instagram is a very visual platform. Not so many people click through from Instagram. So if you're wanting to send them away from somewhere, away from Instagram to another website, to your website, to your landing page, think about that they might not click. So if I was going to use Instagram, I would show them something that sits within Instagram, and then I would use a custom audience, and I would tell people, tell Facebook to go and find the people that watched a video on Instagram or saw a post on Instagram, and I would run a retargeting ad, a conversion ad that sends them off to a landing page where they take an action. So they purchase, they sign up, they buy, they register, they do all of the other different objectives. But we can think more as well about this, because if, for example, we were to place an advert straight away into Messenger. So most people use WhatsApp or Messenger to communicate with friends and relatives. I have to say, even as a marketer, I hate Messenger adverts. So if they were what I would call a cold audience, that's someone that doesn't yet know about me, my products, my services, my course, or my clients, then I'm not going to put an advert into the Messenger newsfeed unless I've got into the Messenger feed, unless I've got a really deep, big budget. But if it's someone that I know that has interacted with a specific video, for example, that's watched more than 50% of a video or 75% of a video, they're certainly going to recall my clients far more and be what I would call more warm, and therefore I might place an advert solely in Messenger. And the beauty of all of the different platforms and the different placements is that you will need to have different assets. So a messenger advert looks very much different to a stories advert, as an example. So that's why you not only need to think about your placement, you need to think about the creative. So you need to think about what it's going to look like on the platform that they're looking at it at. And then there's the audience network. Right now, if you are wanting to get traffic to a web page, to a cold audience, in all of the testing that we've done in the last 3 months, the cheapest clicks have come from audience network, because everybody wants to be in the newsfeed. So the price of clicks within the newsfeed is increasing. If we were to place in the audience network, that means agreements that Facebook have got. It's almost like Google ads, for those of you that have ever run any kind of Google ads, where you place an advert within someone else's website. So that's the audience network. And we're finding that clicks and with really good visuals or a video work really well on audience network, and click costs are decreasing significantly as a result of that. So we just need to think about the behavior of people. And one other comment I want to make, and this, I guess, is relevant. It's a huge statistic with the economy the way it is, and it isn't relevant to the UK, but we are following a similar trend. In August in the USA, 118,000 new businesses were created in the US alone. So that's 118,000 new businesses. Not all of them are going to use Facebook. I do understand that. Not all of them are going to use Facebook ads. I do understand that. But can you see how much more competition there is? And it's the same within the UK as well. But new businesses are registering every day. It's normal in times of economic challenges that more people become self-employed, more people create businesses. So there's more competition. So we need to get really smart about where do we want our ideal audience to see what we want them to see. And then the final part of the puzzle, and this is probably one of the biggest challenges that I see people, is that they're not matching the message that they want people to see, the image or the video, to the landing page. So there's not what we call congruency. And then they're not showing them at the right stage of the customer journey. So the customer journey is awareness. If they've never heard about your products or services or courses or events, what do they need to know first? Remember, it's 9 touch points before they're really going to remember who you are, your products, your services, etc. Then we move on to consideration. So they know now that you exist, but what messages? The message is going to be different between awareness and consideration. Consideration is where you want them to think about actually buying from you. So awareness is what is it that we do? Consideration is how are we going to convince them that we want them to buy from you? Then we move on to conversion. And conversion ads are generally what we would call retargeting ads. So they've done something before. They've watched a video. They've been on your Facebook page. They've responded or they've clicked onto a link for your website. They've done something already. They already know who you are. So when you're running conversion ads, the messaging needs to be your strongest call to action with the most compelling message that there is. And that needs to be a retargeting ad. Now, you'll have noticed before that Facebook only give you 3 different targets or 3 different objectives: awareness, consideration, and conversion. But of course, there's 2 others. There's growth. So what we do is we sell to customers and we spend a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of thinking about how we're going to get a customer on board. But very often we don't tell everybody everything that we do or everything that we sell or about our other events or about our other courses. So growth means that you've already got the customer, you've already got their information. And as long as you've got a GDPR compliant website where they're able to opt out of lists, etc., you can actually use a custom list of people that you have within an email list and upload that. And you can let's imagine that you send out an email campaign and your email campaign only gets a 30% open rate. That's still 70% of that list that haven't seen what you want them to see. So this is what I call a growth ad. Then you take the 70% that didn't open your email and you pop them into a custom list as long as you've got permission, and you can show the contents of what would have been the email within a Facebook ad, or you can get them to click through and see the web version of the email that you wanted to share. And finally, advocacy. We live in a world of referrals, reviews. Referrals and reviews are the best thing you can get, especially if you've got online products and services. And let's face it, in the times that we live in, so much is online these days. So within that, we just recommend that you run some ads to get reviews in different places so that you can actually have some social proof, and people can see that you can be trusted. So are there any questions, Paul? And if anyone is watching this on a recording afterwards, please do connect to me on LinkedIn. I'm Caroline Thomas. And if you've got any questions, then you can refer to you can then come and ask on our Facebook book page too. So handing back.
Very much, Caroline. Yeah, that was really, really useful talk, packed full of lots of useful information that I definitely should have heard before I set up my Facebook ads. As you saw, my audience of 5 million, that I thought, that's great, I'll definitely get something from that. There are a couple of questions that have come in. Yeah, one's quite a broad question, perhaps. Someone said, what is the typical ROI through Facebook ads, average from experience with SMEs?
That's a how long is a piece of string question. It depends on it's going to depend on the competition. It's going to depend on the length of your customer sales cycle. It's going to depend on the price of your product. That's an impossible question to answer.
Sure.
but there's some things that you need to consider. So let's say, for example, a really quick example. I had a client that came to me that was going to charge a monthly membership of £4 a month, but they were charging monthly. They had no churn plan to reduce if people were going to just stay a member for 1 month and go. And their cost of acquisition was £10. So they were paying £10. They were getting £4, but they didn't know how long they were going to be online. So there are some calculations that you need to make.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things that particularly small businesses, obviously very conscious of cost, but there is an ROI even for small businesses, isn't there, if you define your customer right?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Oh, interesting question. Very interesting question. Someone's asked, can Facebook ads be targeted to LinkedIn contacts, almost like a lookalike audience?
The thing that I would do then is send traffic. So use LinkedIn to post your links, and then retarget the traffic from that, or export what you must not do is scrape email addresses from your LinkedIn profile and put them into a Facebook custom list. That is absolutely not good marketing practice. But what you could do, and the best way to handle that, is to share links that you want people to click through to onto LinkedIn and then retarget them through Facebook, and then build lookalike audiences from that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Caroline. I'm conscious that I'm sure you could talk all day long about Facebook ads, but I know you've got a couple of meetings lined up today as well. So I'll let you go. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed that. That was really valuable. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly now so we can take that off. There you are. Thank you. So thanks, Caroline. So we're now going to bring in Joe Andrews for the next talk, who's the founder and MD of the Marketing Collective, looking at sort of strategy and gaining clarity with your marketing plans. So Joe, I think she just disappeared there. So if you come back to us, there you are. Hello.
Right, hi, thank you.
So if you go for the screen share.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, and great to be part of this event. Learned a lot yesterday, and I've just learned a lot from Caroline as well, and it's perfectly set me up in terms of giving you some extra clarity on running those Facebook ads. So what I'm going to talk about is the 6 steps to marketing clarity. So just a little bit about me. I've got 20 years in marketing, very passionate about the industry, and very much about wanting to help others succeed and businesses to shine. My business is the Marketing Collective. We're a company that was established 10 years ago. Predominantly, we work across the tourism industry, so lots of destinations, hospitality, but we do work across other sectors as well. And we're a full service marketing agency. In terms of why am I here today? Well, a lot of it comes back to my why, and just super passionate about helping businesses to succeed. And also because of the situation that we've found ourselves in this year, I truly believe that kind of out of crisis there is always an opportunity. And I think it's this year has been very much about in terms of marketing having to refocus and refresh of what we've been doing, because marketing plans all went out the window beginning of the year. So what we're going to cover today is basically six steps to a basic plan, a very simple plan to get you into a position where you can think strategically about your marketing. So I'm going to take you through a little bit about brand, establishing your USP, connecting with your UEP, which is your unique emotional proposition, defining your ideal visitors, customers and clients, otherwise known as your avatar, which Caroline kind of touched on a little bit. Reviewing your marketing channels and assets, and then how you organize it and basically map it out. And then also at the end, there's a sort of few ideas on marketing for now. So we'll start, get into things, but this is kind of what I want to help you. I want to help you going from a bit of chaos into some clarity. And a coach a few years ago, we talk, it's always about finding the BFOs, which is the blinding flashes of the obvious. And it's those light bulb moments that kind of help to get clarity. So starting with your brand. So brand definition, a brand is not a physical entity. It exists in the consumer's mind. It's a collection of associations and thoughts that are stored in the minds of our individuals. It's what they think about us as a brand. It's a combination of characteristics and added value. And most simply, it's a promise. And your promise is always going to be about making change. So who are you? This is about your brand and being, what is your place in the world? What do you want to be known for? Your brand is your values, your vision, and your message. It's about defining what you want to be known for. And this is something to think about. You can't have marketing without your brand in place. So yeah, that's something to kind of think about. And your brand, it's there to communicate your competitive positioning. So when we look at brand, we use what we call brand pyramid to basically start plotting out kind of what your brand consists of. So we start at the bottom with the base of your brand. Now, these are your attributes. These are your tangible and measurable characteristics. Then the next level up is your rational benefits. So this is where it's fact driven. So it's what the customer gets from you as a result of your product or your service. It's fact driven. Then your emotional benefits. So it's how you make people feel, the emotion. This is effort driven characteristics. Your brand personality are your key traits and your characteristics of your brand. Brand values are, what you offer, what are your core values as a brand. And this is where things like, ethical, integrity, those core values. And then your brand essence. And in theory, your brand essence should and could be just one word, and that's how kind of, plot out your brand. Now, as Paul mentioned, we have got a workbook within the event goodie bag, and it takes you through all of these steps so that you can start to plot and sort of plan. So starting at that bottom of that pyramid, it's about defining those tangibles. So defining your USP. So your USP is your unique selling proposition. Now, this is the feature or the benefit of a product or service that is different from and better than that of your competition. It's what makes you stand out from the rest. It's what makes you stand out from the crowd. So what makes you different? So the key to differentiating is finding that USP and promoting it as a unique benefit and experience to your customers. It's what you want to be known for. So USPs, they can be physical, they can be natural, like, you know, it's the tangible, can be about infrastructure and people. It's all of the things that make you different and then which are an opportunity. But what also makes you different is the experience. So what is the unique experience that a customer can have when they interact with, when they buy, or when they visit your business? What is that difference? And something that brands often forget is about your staff. They are a key part of your brand DNA. So they are often what can make, what makes you different. And in the, there's sort of customer service and things like that. So this is an exercise that, say we do a lot with destinations, but we would say, okay, so destination, think of, list out a number of USPs that, is unique selling propositions and points about your destination. And we know that they would say things like beautiful countryside, that may be more specific and say we've got country parks, that they've got unique heritage, they might have a cathedral if they're a city, they've got historical connections, they've got fantastic shopping, local provenance, local producers. But the problem is that almost every destination can say the same thing. How many places have cathedrals? So it's not unique enough. So what we need to get to is what actually makes us different and why that person is sat there. And so you can do this like with businesses. If you think across, many marketing companies, we tend to say, a lot the same, that, we've got the experience, we've got the X amount of clients and testimonials, but actually what is it that makes us different? And that is, and this was talked about a fair bit yesterday, emotion. 80% of decisions are based and made on emotion. So therefore your unique selling point is not enough. It's the emotion that sells. And that is, as marketeers, that is what that's what we base everything on. It's emotion, because that is what we are selling. So it's about defining your UEP. So your unique emotional proposition, your UEP. Now this is the emotion that differentiates the experience, which has a real benefit for the customer and is in a direct relation to your product or the service. This is about getting in touch with your customer, with their emotions. So the key to differentiating a customer's experience is the unique emotional proposition, the UEP. Now, we're all influenced by emotional triggers, reactions, and empathy. You've only got to think about the Christmas adverts that are running at the moment and how we feel about those. There's always the battle at Christmas about, that emotional trigger that those adverts, are trying to get. And again, there was conversation yesterday within the keynote about the pull between the emotional and also sort of kind of the manipulative kind of element of those adverts. But the key thing is that they all spark emotion, and that is what we want. So it's about turning your USPs, your unique selling points, into those emotional values and therefore emotional meanings, and about finding your meaningful difference, what makes you different. And then you use your that emotional pull to navigate the concerns of your customers. So if their emotions are feeling of stress or happiness, that's how you then pull in within your marketing messaging. So here are some questions to kind of think about when you're looking at your UEP. And again, this is in the workbook. So what is your emotional trigger? What is that emotion that you trigger or you want people to trigger within them? How do you want people to feel? So that's before they buy from you, during the purchasing and the sort of the lead and the journey that they take with you, and then afterwards, what is it that they you want them to feel? How can you exceed their expectations through that emotional connection? And what can you offer in terms of an emotional response that your competitor can't? Again, because that is what they are going to buy on. It's that emotional connection. And how do you want to leave your customers' feelings? Because your customer feeling afterwards, because what we want is to build loyalty. We want them to become, raving fans. We want them to feel special. We want them we want to give them everything that they want to feel, so that they tell everybody else, and they become your raving fans, and then they do your marketing for you. So yeah, it's about selling the emotion and not the feature. So we're not selling the camera that she has in her hand. We're not selling, if her clothes, her hat, her sunglasses. We're not selling, the destination that she is sat in, or she may be sat in a kayak, I don't know. But what we're selling is how she is feeling, and that is the emotion that we have to pull through in all of our marketing. It's not the feature, it's the emotion. So we've looked at what we have to talk about, and that's your USPs, kind of the tangibles. We've looked at how we're going to make people feel. So the next step is that who, and as Caroline said, this is the targeting and the key element. And a lot of this is really quite basic fundamental marketing of going back to that what, how, who, where. It's those the key elements. So it's who we're going to invite. So this is your avatar, your ideal client, and this is a part where I absolutely love doing, because it can be really fun. So this is all about who we are talking to, and it's about building your bank of avatars. Now, some people say to have just, that businesses should have just perhaps one avatar and that you focus solely on that. Others, I know businesses that have got 20 plus avatars. We've got quite a few because we've got different products and services. But in theory, all of these people here, all of these different customers and clients can be for the same product, because what we're doing, each one of those has a slightly different emotion, an emotional pull as to why they would want to buy from you. So it's connecting that emotion with those people and then the messaging. Now, if you haven't done any avatar work before, again, this is in the workbook. There's a really kind of fun and creative way of doing this. So what we like to do is, so draw out a stick person, and you kind of work through the stick person, really building up a profile of who they are. So start with, a simple profile. What's their name, their age, where do they live, what do they do, what house do they live in, have they got a family, what their partners are called, have they got, children, have they got pets. Build up in your mind so that this is aimed at being able to talk directly and really get into the minds of your customer. So build that profile, and then think of your stick person, and you're just going to work through kind of their body. So start with the head, and sort of do like speech bubbles and like spider diagrams. But start with the head. So what do they think? What's their thoughts? What do they want to know? Move to their shoulders. What is weighing them down? What do they just feel heavy with? What's the stresses that they have? What keeps them awake at night? What's that problem that's causing stress between during their lives? And then think about their hands. What is it they do? Now that you can do this in various ways. What do they do for a job? What do they do for hobbies? What do they like to? What do they feel? How do they feel about certain things? And they're moving to kind of their core being. So what are their values? What is at the core of them? What keeps them grounded? So to really, really try and understand what those core values are, which obviously links into with your brand as well. And then moving down to their feet, where are they going in life? Where do they want to go? Who do they admire? Who do they look up to? Who are they trying to impress? Now, this is quite often when we're looking at marketing for business solutions and products. you may be selling it to one particular person, a marketeer, but actually, you know, what they want is to be able to impress their boss, their peers, you know, and to stand out within their team. So, you know, who are they trying to impress? You know, and what makes them laugh, what makes them smile, what, you know, makes them sad. So really build up that avatar of your ideal client, and you can have some great fun doing this. As I say, we've got quite a few. We've got, you know, it's great fun just to name them, because then when you're doing your marketing, you've got that person in mind, whether it's Nick or Julie or, you know, David. You can think like they do, and that's where kind of your marketing is then starting to hit exactly on point. So as I say, there's that within the workbook, so you can have some fun doing that. So in terms of then the marketing review, so this is where you then look at what you've been doing in terms of your marketing and how it then connects with your avatar. Because, and again, Caroline mentioned this, there is no point running ads that don't speak to the right people. So look at your brochures, your videos, your social posts. Are they actually, you know, connecting to your ideal avatar and your customer? And the way that we do that is looking and scoring whether that is making a connection. Again, there's a little table, a really simple sort of tally sheet as to how you can do this within the workbook. But for example, so thinking of the family, you know, you've got an advert running in a magazine, for example. So score that in terms of how it looks. So the headline, the image that you've used, the call to action. How does that score on a level of emotion with that family, or, you know, that family avatar? Does it make that emotional connection? And then also, is it relevant? Is the headline, the image, the call to action relevant to that target audience? It may be that it's relevant to a different avatar. So, you know, what you do is build out basically your, you know, all of your marketing assets, and then score them on emotional relevance and actual relevant as to whether the content of that advert is relevant. And you'll start to see a picture and to start to kind of build out to see where, you know, certain adverts may not be firing right and where you can make changes. So again, it's really simple sort of review to do. And then looking at the messaging. So your emotion plus the solution that you offer is your marketing message. Now, this is all for the same product, same company. We've got 3 different avatars with 3 different emotions that they want to feel. And we can give them 3 different solutions. So each one has a slightly different solution, which then is your message. So, you know, we want this person to feel calm. She's super stressed. She is working ridiculous hours. We want to give her that sense of calm. We want her to go on holiday. This is an example of a camper van holiday. We want her to go on holiday and know that, you know, everything is done for her. We don't want her to stress and to worry. So the messaging is all about the booking, you know, everything being easy for them. And then going to the bottom one, say the family, about being connected. You know, they want to connect again as a family. So what we want to do is we want to give them more memories. We want to have them enjoying, laughing. So it's about creating a holiday around, you know, family love and connection. And it could be, you know, going even deeper than that. It could be, you know, that the husband and wife need to reconnect. So you know, you can really drill down and pull on emotion when you're doing this. So lastly, in terms of steps, it is organising and basically then looking at how you map that out. Now, quite often when we start working with businesses and looking at, you know, they sort of say, well, we need a plan, we need a marketing strategy. And there's the perception that, you know, marketing plans and strategies need to be, you know, huge documents of, you know, multiple pages that, you know, quite often end up, you know, printed and sat on a shelf or stored somewhere and never ever looked at after you've done it. But what these 6 steps do, and what, you know, mapping it out like this in terms of clarity, it basically will give you a very simple marketing strategy that will keep you in line with what your brand is and where you want to go, what you stand for, your key points of what you're selling, the emotions that you are connecting with and who you're doing that for and to, and then the tactics of how you're doing it. And that is the most simplest marketing strategy. So all you need to do really is to list it out. And as I say, the workbook will help you do this, but take that a step further. So step one, just write out your brand, go through those steps and just write it out, brain dump, what that is. Define your USP. Now, it may be that you end up with a whole sheet of USPs, but there'll be some that resonate and that you'll be able to pull out and that you'll be able to focus on. Your emotional connection. So these, again, this keep sort of saying it, but this is key to kind of your marketing. It's that emotion that you are connecting with. Your avatars, making sure who they are. Put together a file of each of your stick people, and what each of them, all of those elements that I mentioned. And again, just highlight the key points of what that is, because that's who you're targeting. Reviewing your marketing and how that is connecting with your avatars, and making the necessary changes. So after all of those, the review parts, make changes to the images, try, different image, different headlines, different call to actions, because you'll find that certainly, and this is the beauty of running, digital ads. So with Facebook, you can simply just change, the beauty of stopping a Facebook ad, changing a headline and then running it again. Organize your folders, so in line with your avatars and your emotions, group your images. This is something that we need to do because we've got a huge amount of assets in terms of images for our clients, and so well, actually let's group them by happy photos, let's group them by for example, we work with a lot of attraction, so it's cute and sort of funny type emotion. So organize things by that emotion that you want to drive, or by your avatar. So again, family. So it's really quick and easy for you to know exactly where to go to find those, and then to pull your marketing together. Step 8, test and measure. Now, this again, fundamental of marketing, isn't it? We have to test and measure. It's what marketing is all about. And don't be afraid to do it. Don't be afraid to stop doing, your Facebook ads, or to pull something and change it, because there is no point wasting time, effort, and money on running ads that are not hitting any of these points, because you're throwing money away and you will not be connecting with your audience. And then lastly, kind of communicating it with your stakeholders and your teams as well. Get them involved. They need to know about your brand and what your values are. They need to know, who Nick is if he's your avatar, and to recognize him if he's going to come into your shop, and exactly then know how to communicate with him, what they need, what you need to say, because they are, as I said right at the beginning, they are a key part of your brand DNA as well. So tell them, communicate them, what you're doing and how, and really get them involved. And lastly, it is about taking action. Action is it's the foundational key to all success. So you've got to put one foot forward and to start. So even just working through just a few of these steps is going to give you clarity and is going to help you with your marketing. It's this year, marketing plans, as I said, have all gone out the window, and there's an element of feeling flustered and not knowing. We can't plan too far ahead, but keeping these basic foundation marketing pieces together will help you. So as promised, I said I'd just do some sort of marketing things for now. So what you can be doing like right now and during kind of the next few months. So now is the time for emotion, reassurance, and empathy. You have to be showing your customers and your clients that you really do understand how they feel and where they are in their sort of processes of an understanding. Video is more about the content over the quality. So you don't need to be doing high high production videos. We've all got phones to be able to just record video, communicate, talk to your audiences, because again, talking, it's that emotional connection that you can give, rather than over sort of an email or something like that. So yeah, be more about the content that you're giving out than the quality. Reward loyalty, so your local audiences, your customers, your key customers, who are already buying for you, they are key. And reward them and let them know how important they are, because they are the ones that will be keeping you going as well. And we've seen it a lot through the various lockdowns that it's buying local. So reward and say thank you. Share reviews, testimonials, user generated content. Again, that is key. Caroline mentioned about how you generate those. That is key, because it goes back to the reassurance element. Talk about any accreditation and certification, because again, you're reassuring your target audiences and your customers about what you're doing. Now, SEO, it's a really key time to be implementing SEO audits and focusing on search marketing, because we are searching more and more because of lockdown. We're looking for bargains. We're looking for what we can do and what we're allowed to do. We've got a need to still be spending money. So we are searching, and so brands that are not optimizing, are going to lose out. So make sure your SEO is on point. Google My Business. Now, this often gets overlooked as almost as a social channel. Can keep posting the content that you're putting on your Facebook, on your Google My Business pages, because it will help with your search and your SEO. Meaningful experiences. What can you offer your customers in terms of what that is meaningful to make them feel special? And normality. Now, this is the biggest thing that we are all missing at the moment. We want things to be back to normal, whatever the new normal and normal is going to be. But that's the biggest thing that people are missing out. So how can you help them? What can you do? What can you offer to help them at the moment? And also, it's about encouraging and exciting and inspiring and incentivizing. They're the key kind of themes that we've worked around this year, because that is what we all want to feel. It's those key emotions. So I hope that has helped. And yeah, if there's any questions, I'd love to answer. Where you can find me. Let me know how. Any questions or what you thought of the talk. I say the workbook is in the goodie bag. There is, it's going to take you through all these steps as well. So really hope that it's useful. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jo. Really, really interesting. I think that was, and I think, yes, you're absolutely right. That will make the workbook even more valuable, listening to that talk and sort of having a bit of guidance there. Thank you. And I'm going to post a link to that goodie bag in the chat box now. To that. There's a really good question, actually, great question that came in that ties into one of the questions almost yesterday. So we'll just go through that one question because I'm conscious of time. How do you trigger emotions for something that's perhaps less exciting or perhaps an add-on? So we're talking here about learning and development for employees. There was a question yesterday about a HR spreadsheet. How do you trigger emotions for things like that?
It's the solution that gives you. So whilst it might be, say, for example, using an example of a spreadsheet, how are they going to feel? If that's going to help, how are you going to feel after that's done? Is it a sense of relief that you've achieved something? What is the practical thing that it's going to give you? Is it going to give you more time to be able to focus on something else? We do it as in terms of our offsite marketing. It's like we take that stress away because we want our clients to be able to sleep at night. So there's always, it's thinking about what that end product is. So once they've completed or they've learned something. In terms of learning, it could be about impressing somebody else or reconnecting with peers or teams. So it's there is always an emotional part, and happy to talk about it in more detail with somebody, whoever sort of asked that question, to drop me a line, and I'd love to explore it with them. So
yeah, thank you. That's great. You're absolutely right. I think it's that sort of removing stressors, and you can play on that emotion and a zen-like calm. That's there you are. Perfect. Thank you so much, Joe. As I say, I found that really valuable. And yeah, there's a link to the workbook in the virtual event bag, which I've just shared. And I'll send around Joe's details afterwards in case anyone does want to speak to her. So move on then. There's been a very slight change in the program. So Lilah Waite, who's the group CMO at Lead Forensics, is going to be talking next. So Lilah, we'll bring you into the conversation now. Thank you very much. And speaking about the virtual event bag, I know there is a very nice addition from Lead Forensics to win is it a MacBook?
It's a MacBook Pro, yes. So it's I think it's only just been released to market, and also 2 HomePod Minis, which are apparently the Apple equivalent of the Alexa, which are, I think, not even on the market yet. So yeah, a great competition there for you.
Yeah, definitely. So do take a look at that virtual event bag. But onto the educational side of things as well. So we're looking at website traffic and potentially turning that into leads. I know you've got a lot of really valuable content here. So if you want to share your slides.
Sure. Super. Okay, I think we're all good. So I'm going to spend the next 20 to 30 minutes with you just chatting through the uncomfortable truth about MQLs and SQLs, so marketing qualified leads and sales qualified leads. And really what I'm going to be talking about is getting more out of what you currently do. And it kind of is applicable to anyone with a website. So B2B, B2C, there's kind of learnings in here for everyone. And really, if you're in marketing looking to generate a greater ROI on your marketing campaigns, if you're in sales looking to close more deals, or if you're a business owner looking to increase your revenues and actually achieve business growth, then I think that there'll be some interesting snippets for everybody in there. So I will just introduce myself first of all. Hopefully we'll move on. Good. So it works. So as Paul mentioned, I'm the Group Chief Marketing Officer for the Lead Forensics Group. So I look after a number of our products. So that's Lead Forensics, Webio, Web Insights and IP Flow. I've been in marketing for about 18 years, 10 years B2B tech side, and about 8 years in the corporate kind of space. I currently manage a team of 80 really talented marketers. Some of them will be here a little bit later to chat to. And I'm a wife, I'm a mum, I'm a keen cruiser, although obviously none of us are going anywhere at the moment. And you know, in terms of Lead Forensics, we identify your website visitors. So if you've got a website, typically only 2% of those people visiting your website will ever inquire with you. Lead Forensics kind of lifts the lid on who those other 98% of your website visitors are, and we give you their contact information. So, and we are running a free trial. So if you're interested in taking a trial of Lead Forensics, just let us know at the end, let Paul know. And during that free trial, you'll also get any businesses that have visited your website, including their contact information during that time. So hopefully that will give you some more leads to be able to capitalize on as we kind of go into the end of the year and try and finish the year on a high. So if you're interested in that, then let us know at the end. But what I'm going to talk to you about today is not necessarily about your website visitors, but it's more about what do we do with leads, and what do we do as marketeers with the leads that come into our business, whatever source they're generated from. So I'm going to start off by introducing you to a couple of figures. So first one, 46 hours and 53 minutes. Does anyone have any idea as to how this relates to us in a marketing and a business environment? It's actually quite surprising. So I'll just skip forward in the interest of time. So 46 hours and 53 minutes is the average length of time it takes for a B2B company to follow up with their marketing qualified leads. However you wish to coin them, it's up to you. By an MQL, I mean the opportunities generated by marketing, but you can coin them whatever you like, really. But anyway, back to the point. That's almost 2 days to follow up with genuinely interested prospects. And this is the source of this information, or the source of this stat is from Forbes, and there's been extensive research in this kind of area. And it seems madness, but there's also further madness, because I speak to a lot of marketing leaders who don't even know how long it takes them to follow up with their opportunities. At all. They couldn't even hazard a guess. And I was conducted a keynote presentation at the Business Arrival conference a few days ago, and the consensus there actually was consistent with this stat, that it pretty much takes about 2 days to follow up with opportunities that are generated by marketing. So I'm really keen to know which camp you're in. So are you confidently sitting there thinking, we've got this nailed, we're much, much quicker than that, so super, like a gold star if that's you, or actually do you not know, or actually is it taking you a lot longer? But I'll leave you guys to answer that question for yourselves. Okay, so let's move on. So 27%. So any guesses as to what this stat relates to? It is actually the number of marketing generated leads that actually ever get contacted. So if you think of all of the marketing efforts that we put into place, and 75% of those never actually even get contacted, or about 75% of those never get contacted. So 75% of marketing investment wasted. For me, that would be the salaries of around 60 people, plus obviously all of our external expenditure and all of that sort of thing. And that's a lot of wasted investment for marketing teams and for business owners. If we're not capitalizing on the lion's share of our opportunities, we're literally just pouring that money down the drain. And of course, we know that our teams aren't intentionally ignoring those opportunities. But I'm just going to take you on to the next stat. So 1.3. So any guesses on 1.3? So this is the average number of times a sales rep will try to call an opportunity that has been generated before they give up. They'll try 1.3 times on average. So you could say that across the board, we're trying, but we're just not really trying very hard at all. So what does it all mean for us as marketers? So we all know about the analogy of losing customers is like a leaky bucket. But I think based upon the averages that we've covered so far, I think we can also say that the marketing tactics associated with lead generation can also be this big old leaky bucket. We can actually put all of the tech, all of the marketing tactics we want in place. Obviously, Caroline was talking about Facebook advertising, and I know there's a session later on LinkedIn and advertising and LinkedIn selling, and we can put all of that in place. We can spend a fortune on the latest innovations, the trending strategies. We can spend a fortune on website, and we can spend fortune on website conversion gizmos and live chat and all of that sort of thing that uplift our conversions by whatever percent. I mean, ultimately us marketeers know how to spend budgets fairly well, but if we have this big leaky marketing bucket that fails at the first hurdle, all of those efforts, all of that investment, all of those gadgets and gizmos are all irrelevant. It's all in vain. It's irrelevant if the opportunities that we generate actually don't yield any results for our business. It's kind of a pointless task, or pointless exercise even. So these numbers are madness, Lilah. I hear you on it. They're crazy. And I think in order to fix it, we need to understand why they exist. So we all know that traditional marketing and sales models result in this chasm, a chasm between marketing and sales. And there are many great businesses out there who are really working to try and close that chasm and have a better sales and marketing alignment. But oftentimes, whether it's a chasm or whether it's a small gap, there's always this like no man's land between an MQL, a marketing qualified lead, and an SQL, sales qualified lead. And some might argue that sales teams like to cherry pick opportunities, and they might leave behind some great opportunities just because it doesn't look great on the surface. And then others may argue that marketing will accept anything, whether it's a right fit or not for the business. For me, I would counter both of those arguments, but we kind of have to acknowledge that those views do exist. But in any case, on average, only 27% of the opportunities that we generate in marketing are making it across that chasm and actually having any meaningful impact on the business. The rest fall into this pit of nowhere. So never to be contacted again, or maybe if you're one of the more forward-thinking marketing teams, you might well put those leads into some sort of marketing automation, rewarming process, or even a re-engagement or remarketing strategy on social media. And you will get a conversion out of that, but the impact will be negligible in comparison to actually converting them the first time around. So we want to try and avoid those opportunities going into this big pit of nowhere. And I think that the reason is that I kind of mentioned that we have this chasm, a real lack of ownership. And I believe it's the responsibility of the marketing team to really take control of this gap. If we're going to drive maximum marketing value, we need to stop losing 75-ish% of our opportunities at that first hurdle. So I'd like to introduce you to humanized real-time engagement. It's a strategic play in the marketing mix. It's often overlooked. It's not exciting like a gadget and gizmo and a bell and a whistle, but it's about process and it's about focus. But it's really, really important, and it can really, really make a difference to your business's bottom line if you focus on this piece. So I'm going to give you a bit of a personal experience now. So when I first joined a certain business, which will remain nameless at this point in time, I found this exact problem. So it was actually taking us longer than the industry average to contact our marketing qualified leads. So 4 days, up to 4 days, some were better than that, but up to 4 days. We were converting 40% of our leads to sales qualified leads. So not quite as bad as the 27% industry average, but still 60% of opportunities wasted. And the thing was, is it just wasn't a focus. It's almost as if no one had really thought about it. So speed, accuracy of our lead data and tenacity just weren't central to the team. They're all focusing on gadgets and gizmos and bells and whistles and things like that. And they were working really hard. So marketing team were working really hard, but they were becoming disillusioned because their performance against the business targets in terms of the revenue contribution just wasn't where it needed to be. So they were generating opportunities, but it was relatively meaningless for the business. So as marketers, we need to take responsibility of our business contribution. And traditional models of marketing, throwing leads over the fence to the sales team, just doesn't maximize business results. It's a completely flawed process. although there are still lots of businesses that are set up with this kind of mentality of drive leads, don't worry about anything else after that. But regardless, it is flawed, and I think increasingly marketing teams are taking more ownership of that business contribution and not just focusing on lead generation, but it still does exist. And I think particularly at C-level and VP level and business owner level, it's all about the business contribution. So it's all about business growth. It's all about revenue generation. So we know the problem, we know why it's there, but what can we do about it? So when we were looking at this problem, we conducted a ton of research, and there's been some really insightful research carried out into this whole area. So you can just Google that and find loads of it. And it was super helpful for us. And I've pulled out a brief quote from one of those research studies. And it is the odds of contacting a lead, if called within 5 minutes, are 100 times higher versus taking 30 minutes. And so we were taking up to 4 days. And so that was a real wow moment for me, that goodness, if you're 100 times more likely to reach a prospect within 5 minutes compared with 30 minutes, I'm dealing with really small percentages after 2, 3, 4 days. And so I realized, we really needed to make some big changes if we were going to uplift our conversions from that 40% mark and stop wasting the 60% of opportunities. So I just had a question for you. So, how much of an impact would improving the contact rate by 100 times have on your business? I expect most businesses would be able to quantify that in terms of value, and so that would be really interesting for you to do that calculation. So we realised 4 main things. One, we needed to be faster, but no, we needed to be as immediate as we could possibly get to. We needed to be more tenacious. A few calls before giving up just wasn't going to cut it. We needed to be human. Automated replies, we've received your inquiry, thanks very much, and bots just weren't going to deliver what we needed. And if we were going to really excel in this area, we needed to create a standout impression. The wow moment, these guys really care about me as a prospect, and they really value my business. And we wanted to create that impression from the very first interaction, that we really value that prospect getting in touch with us, and that we're going to really look after them. And we wanted to do that from the very first moment that they got in touch with us. So we set a goal. And it was a really ambitious goal. So remember, we were taking up to 4 days to contact our opportunities, and we changed that expectation to 10 minutes. And not just that, we wanted 98% of all of our opportunities to have that first humanized contact attempt within 10 minutes. And at first, the team just thought that this goal was crazy. We thought it was never going to happen, but it soon became one of our core mantras and one of our metrics of success. And the reason we wanted to make human contact was exactly as Joe was talking about, was to really provoke that emotional engagement with our business. Again, to try and make them feel valued, but to really emphasize that human to human contact. And so actually that human contact piece within the first 10 minutes was really important to us. So, as I mentioned, there are so many reasons why humanized real-time engagement is important, but these were our core motivators. So we wanted to make contact whilst we were still front of mind, whilst they were still at their computer, before they looked at a competitor, before they went off into a meeting or something like that. And better still, whilst they were still on our website, whilst they were still interested, whilst we were still front and center of their thinking. I mentioned we wanted to make every potential buyer feel special. We wanted to create that emotional engagement as quickly as we could. And we wanted to facilitate their request as quickly as possible, again, so they felt valued. And we wanted to instill trust. So we really felt strongly that by creating a great first impression, that would hopefully reflect positively on our product and the continued service that the prospect, which will hopefully become a customer, will get from there on after. So we felt like by having a really high-end experience at that very first moment, that would reflect positively on the kind of lifetime of that customer. But ultimately, our main driver was boosting our marketing results. It was to give us a greater ROI, and we didn't want to spend a load of money getting there. We didn't need any further business investment. We just needed to be smarter with the opportunities that we already had on the table and make sure we were maximising the returns from that. So we didn't actually want to invest anything more, but we wanted to boost our results. And we did. So we achieved a 212% uplift in the conversion performance of our MQLs. It took a while and we had to take baby steps, but over the period of a year, we refined the process, we increased our focus, and we saw our results fundamentally improve. So we uplifted that conversion by over 45% from a 40% conversion to an 85% conversion. So 85% of our leads were being converted as compared with the 40% that we started off with. And I just wanted to kind of colour this in a little bit more for you with a kind of a business A, business B kind of walkthrough. So if we just, and business A and business B get the same number of MQLs. So business A, for example, generates 1,000 leads. And that could be in any period, like a year or 6 months, however long, it doesn't matter. They contact their leads and they convert at 27%, which is the industry average, to give 270 opportunities for the business. They sell to, say, 1 in 4, making 67 sales, and they have an average order value of £5,000. They then make out of those 1,000 MQLs, £335,000. Say, for example, they've spent £100,000 generating those 1,000 leads. That gives them a marketing return of £3.35 for every £1 spent. Okay, so that's industry average. Business B gets 1,000 MQLs, so exactly the same. They convert at 85%, which is the figure that we were able to get to, although I have seen some other businesses get to 92, 93%. We just haven't been able to get there just yet, but we'll just use 85% because I know that that's totally possible, real world, 85% conversion to SQL, giving 850 SQLs compared with the 270 previously. They sell at the same rate, so 1 in 4. They make 212 sales. They have the same average order value, so £5,000. And instead of making £335,000, they make over £1 million. They spent the same, £100,000, generating those 1,000 MQLs. And that gives them a marketing return of £10.60 for every £1 spent. So that's an uplift of £725,000 in whatever period, a year, a month, 2 years, 6 months, whatever. The same marketing expenditure, the same number of opportunities, the same sales conversion and sales values, but just a focus on better conversions associated with our marketing opportunities. So £750,000 just through a focus on process and by making speed to lead an absolute priority for the team. £750,000. So here's my suggested quick start guide for developing an effective humanized real-time response strategy. So review where you are. Be honest. don't kid yourself. If you think you're getting 45% conversion, you're probably getting 35% conversion. So if you don't know where you are, that's where you need to start, is find out how long is it currently taking you to contact your leads? What are your current conversion rates? How tenacious are your team? You need to kind of know where you are. You need to map your current processes and cut any fat out of that process. So anything that is cumbersome in terms of stopping your teams from being able to get hold of your leads, you need to cut that out. I've seen some businesses who get a lead in and then start profiling it, and then it might be a couple of days again before they're able to contact it. Get rid of all of that. None of that sort of stuff will actually have the same level of benefit as being able to get hold of that lead as quickly as possible. Set a goal. It needs to be ambitious and almost impossible, if not quite. If you set your goal at 85% and you get to 75%, well, super. You've increased your results, by whatever amount is your start point. But if you set your goal at just 5 or 10% more than you're currently achieving, well, the likelihood is that you'll only add 2 or 3 or 4% improvement. So make sure it's a really, really tough but an almost impossible goal. So I'll go shoot for the stars. And if you kind of get halfway there, 3/4 of the way there, then super. Get the whole team on board. Explain why it's important. Everyone needs to focus on the need for rapid response. Without having the whole team on board, the whole piece will fall down. And so you kind of need everyone to have this as a core focus for them. You need to set response targets and performance manage against them. So monitor speed, so sub 5 minutes in terms of contact if you can, and persistence. So we put a persistence rate of 10 attempts in place because ultimately you're trying to fulfill a request, and so you shouldn't be apologetic to trying to get hold of someone to fulfill something that they've asked for. So be persistent. 1.3 tries is just not going to cut it. Leverage systems to classify and automatically route your leads to your team members. You won't achieve greatness without tech to help. Use whatever you want, but some sort of lead routing system will absolutely help you to have that speed to lead. Celebrate the micro improvements. So keep the momentum and focus going. So you want to celebrate all of those baby steps, all of those improvements, just to keep everyone moving forward along with that same goal, and so people don't become disillusioned. You want to track your data over time so that you can see where you've come from and where you're headed. The data is absolutely at the core of this. You need to monitor and measure exactly where you are, and leaving it to monitor it once a quarter just isn't enough. It needs to be every day, or if you can't do every day, every week. Be relentless in your quest. So this shouldn't be a fad. It's a core mission, and so kind of remind the team regularly to ensure that it stays front of mind. And be human. So automated approaches just won't work, and that might be an unpopular opinion with the rise of automated and AI-driven chatbots and things. But it's well worth it. People buy from people. It needs to be human. How are you going to engage in a human way, and how can you make it possible to engage in a human way? So, just 2 final thoughts from me, as I'm sure that there's some people thinking, well, that sounds impossible, or that sounds so hard to do. So here we are. It always seems impossible until it's done. And do something you've never done before to get somewhere you've never been before. And just a small addition for me, because obviously I can't claim those 2 quotes, but some steps forward are better than no steps forward at all. So even if you can't overhaul your whole process, marginal gains will uplift your conversions and will improve will result in an improved business conversion. So have a think about what's feasible and what baby steps you can take, because something is better than nothing at all. And so I'll just leave you with our final competition. Lead Forensics does enable real-time engagement with your website visitors. So fuel your teams with high intent MQLs. start valuable conversations right at the point when it's most relevant. If you start your trial, and take a demonstration, we'll run you through all how it works. We'll then enter you into a draw to win an Apple MacBook or those new HomePod minis. So let us know if you do want to start your trial. It's completely free. It can run for 2 weeks. You get the data, and hopefully you'll get some leads from it that you can capitalize on over the next few weeks as we head towards the end of the year. So last thing for me is just to thank you for, well, I'll just pop that one back up, is to thank you for your time today. It's been great talking with you, and if you've got any questions, just let me know.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Lilah. And I mean amazing, literally. That was some jaw-dropping statistics in there. Absolutely incredible. Thank you.
No worries, pleasure.
Yeah, we do have an interesting question in the Q&A, which you may have seen. When someone's visiting this person's website or downloads their brochure and makes an inquiry, they only ask for email at the moment. From what you're saying, perhaps they should ask for numbers. And there was a comment about this yesterday about the drop-off rates if you do ask for phone numbers. So what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, we always ask for a telephone number, and that is to facilitate the engagement. If you're asking for an email address, there can, of course, be a typo in that. People can choose whether they respond to you. Ultimately, you can't have too much of an onerous form. You're right. With every kind of additional field that you add onto a form, your completion rate, starts to be on a, it's on a sliding scale. But I would always encourage you to ask people to add a phone number of some sort to facilitate engagement. I think the important piece on there is your wording around that form should be that you're wanting to help them to facilitate their inquiry. And that's why you need a couple of different contact points. Of course, everyone will have different communication preferences, and that's why if you only rely on email, then you're reducing or dramatically reducing your chances of actually being able to reach that person. So I would always encourage you to ask for some sort of phone number on that form. But just position it so that you're wanting that number to facilitate their request in the best possible way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. I think I've had some success in the past with putting just an asterisk next to, for example, the name and email address. So it makes it clear that you have to submit them, but then phone number is almost optional sometimes. So that's when you do get a lot more people because they just feel a little bit less forced to give out their phone number.
Yeah, you can certainly, like you say, have mandatory and then optional fields for sure.
And also, if you work in B2B, then you should be able to get their phone number, but you've then got gatekeepers potentially to deal with as well, haven't you?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is, you can get a phone number for a HQ or something if you're in B2B, but you're likely to have to try and wade your way through a number of gatekeepers and things, which can be problematic. So oftentimes, if people are inquiring, they're inquiring for a reason, and they're going to want to engage with you at some point. And so I wouldn't be apologetic in asking for a way of being able to facilitate that. So I think that's what we have to remember is people are inquiring for a reason. And I think possibly more so in B2B than in B2C, because of course B2B, that's not your personal phone number, it's an office line or something. In B2C, I think it should definitely be optional because often it needs to be a mobile number or something like that.
Yeah, very good point indeed. We've got a comment there, another cracking presentation. So that's excellent. Real-time feedback. And yeah, just a very quick point from me. I think coming from a sales background as well, there's definitely a lead quality half-life almost that, yeah, if you follow up with someone quickly, they're much more responsive. If you phone someone after a week, half the time when you say, hi, it's Paul from Expert Webinars, it takes them a few seconds to even work out who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that concept of a half-life. I might well steal that.
I want full credit, please.
Of course.
Excellent, thank you. That takes us to 12:05. So I say a massive thank you, Lilah. That was a really valuable presentation. Pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. And yes, I'll send round details of the virtual event bag to everyone via email. It will be on our social feeds. The competition is there for the MacBook. I have an account with Lead Forensics. I think it's a cracking piece of software. We're going to take a quick break now then, which will take us through to 12:30. So let's just put this holding slide up. Okay, welcome back everyone. Thanks for joining us again for the afternoon session of day 2 of the Marketing Masterclass. Let's go back to the program. So the next talk, I'm going to bring Michael Trigg into the conversation very shortly. The next talk I think is going to be extremely valuable. I've sat in on one of Michael's webinars previously, and it was absolutely fantastic. It's a skill that a lot of us perhaps struggle with or don't have that much experience with. So I'm going to bring Michael in now, who's going to start his video, hopefully. And the title of the next talk is Stand Out from the Crowd by Mastering Your Presentation. So if I stop that share, there you are, Michael. Can you hear me okay?
I can indeed. Thank you, Paul.
Wonderful. I shall hand over then. I'll let you take the reins.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Well, good afternoon and welcome to my sitting room in a very foggy, frosty Cotswolds. And I want to start with a word today that isn't usually associated with marketing, and that is appreciation. And there's a wonderful quote from a very famous French authoress, I think, and she said, appreciation is a wonderful thing. It makes what is excellent in others belong to us as well. Now, unless you think I'm getting all cheesy and new agey, I want to stack the deck a little bit more by quoting from William James, who is probably the founder of psychology, so 1880s in America. And he said this: its deepest principle of human nature, it's craving to be appreciated. Now, there are all sorts of ways of showing appreciation. We know that. You can give somebody flowers, you can cook dinner for them, you can make love to them, you can kiss them, but a lot of those aren't necessarily applicable to a lot of your clients. And one of the most powerful ways, I think, of showing appreciation, and many other things besides, is how you communicate with others, both online and face-to-face, both in what you say and how you say it. And as you've just said, Paul, some of us are very good at this, like the previous 3 examples. I think Joe, Lilah, and Caroline were brilliant. But a lot of us are not so swift at it. And sometimes we just have to raise our game. So that's why I've called this talk Stand Out from the Crowd. And it is the difference that makes the difference, really, because we've heard a lot about USP and UEP and excellent things already. But if we're honest, why should somebody buy us? There are 50 million sort of web designers, marketeers, social media experts, plumbers, you name it out there. What's going to make somebody buy us? Well, all sorts of things. Your kids may go to the same school, or you support the same football team or something. But if those links and those rapport builders aren't there, probably it's the way you engage with them, the way they feel you get them, that is the difference, that makes the difference. And so that's what we're here to talk about. Now, since you've done me the honor of being here, it's only fair I should tell you a little bit about me, very briefly. I started off as a soldier for 6 years in the army, 5 years in the army, a couple of years in the merchant bank of the city, which I loathed. And then I spent 6 years with Procter & Gamble in sales and sales management. And for the last 30 years, I've been doing this sort of thing. And I have my own little company for 20 of those. I work, yes, with and I'm not showing you this lot to boast and say, I'm amazing at all. I'm just giving you hopefully a little bit of confidence in what I'm about to share with you actually works. And 2 of the clients you see on that slide in front of you, actually, as a result of putting into action what I showed them, they won nearly 2 billion quid worth of new business. But let's bring it down a little bit. I want to share one quid. I've taken it verbatim from a text from one of my clients who had to give the presentation of his life in Amsterdam to a whole lot of industry heads, competitors, and everything else. And I prepared him for the talk. And this was the text he said afterwards. 2 new class asked if I'd go and meet their boss. The organizers wanted me to talk at the United States event, the American event. One competitor gave me a pat on the back, saying I must do this often, another offered me a job. So I give you this just to give you a feel that this stuff works. Yeah, I've written books, but perhaps more relevant to you is the app, which is free. It's called Ovation, and I'll be referring to it later on, but those are all available to you should you wish it. So the aim, what I'd like to do over the next sort of 25 minutes is maybe share a few different ways of thinking and doing, basically, so you make sure you have a clear message every time, because most people don't. I say most, that's only 51%. I'd say about 95% of people, when they're presenting, don't have a clear message. But also this live up to your marketing. Because one of my recent clients said, you know, she was a marketing director. She said, I'm so pissed off because we spend all this money on marketing and we get them brilliant leads. And when our people turn up, they don't match the marketing. They're not good. So hopefully this will, what I'm about to share with you, will help you match up to your marketing and stand out from the others, because that's what it's all about. And I'm going to chunk it into three, if I may. First of all, we'll very briefly have a little reality check. What's going on there? What do we want? What do people want? Then secondly, I'd like to look at what gets in the way for us all. And thirdly, let's have a look at the first 90 seconds of your talk on or offline, because it's that that's going to help build rapport. And I think it's actually the most important part of any talk. So let's have a look at that. Well, what do your clients want right now? What are they looking for? And I think we can just turn this around, really. You know, what would we want right now? And pretty fundamental things, but it's basically what we've always wanted. We want reassurance. Your clients need reassurance that A, you're still in business, B, you care about them, to be reassured that you're honest and straight and you have integrity, and as Joe mentioned earlier, that you're capable of striking, building and maintaining empathy with other people, and that you're human, and that you lift the load of impenetrable jargon when you're talking about it. And that was what was so refreshing this morning from Caroline and Joe and Lilah, is that there was very little jargon in that at all, and normally it's chock full of it, and I'll mention that in a bit more detail later on. But we want to be reassured. And honesty. I don't know if you can see that on your screen, but it comes from Warren Buffett, and perhaps the most successful investor of all time. Honesty is a very expensive gift. Don't expect it from cheap people. And my girlfriend lives in a very ritzy part of London. And I remember shortly after the first lockdown, people were going around this area of West London, flogging COVID testing kits that were completely false. I just think that's bloody awful. I really do. Yeah, sense of humor. God, people are rather po-faced a lot of the time, with reason at the moment. But there's, keep a light touch. My late dad said, a sense of humor is the lubricant of life. And I think we can do a bit more of that. And coming back to the appreciation thing again, you're not going to get telling your potential clients, oh, you're amazing, you're awesome, I'm so lucky to have you. You're not going to do that. But it just stack the deck a little bit further about this appreciation thing. I've done some unofficial research over about 20 years, I suppose, asking a lot of my clients who go across pretty well every sector. When I have 12 people in front of me, I often ask this question. Tell me, when's the last time you left work at the end of a day saying to yourself, wow, if I get one more pat on the back, I'm going to resign? If anybody tells you one more time what a great member of the team I am and how much my work is valued, I'm going to hand them a cards, because I can't take all this praise. It's embarrassing. And the reaction, whether it's retailers or bankers or aeronautical engineers, is always the same. Ha, you got to be joking. Or I wish. So it's not we don't get enough of it, basically, in life, both personally and professionally. And I think when you present well to somebody else, it's a way of showing your appreciation for them, that you get your acts together, you get your ducks in a row to make it a useful experience for them. So that's some of what we always wanted. But before we move on now to the second part, what gets in the way, let me have a look at with you this guy. Oh, and not forgetting to smile. I don't mean you go around grinning like a Cheshire cat, but Smiling is a really useful, powerful thing to do. And I notice an awful lot of people, including me, don't smile enough when they're on screen. Now, George Bernard Shaw, this guy, very witty, brilliant wordsmith and playwright, but he said something I think is highly applicable to us here. It's that. It's the illusion it's taken place. And so let's look now at that second, what gets in the way. Well, first of all, the speed at which people talk. And it seems to me the younger people get, often the faster they talk. And I remember when my first MacBook got a little sick and I had to take it into the Apple store on Regent Street, they needed the uber geek from behind the scenes to come out. And he said, sure. I said, whoa, I'm not thick, but I'm not as fast as that. Could you slow down a little bit? Sure. First you do this. After 3 goes, I just gave up. It was too fast. But I tend to find people talk on the whole too fast, particularly online. And when we're a little bit nervous and keyed up, it's very easy to talk too fast and overload people with stuff. And linked with talking too fast, what gets in the way is very few people actually shut the hell up and pause from time to time. Like punctuation, because that's all commas and pauses and new paragraphs are in your talk. It's punctuation. And with some, it's just a sort of flow of consciousness. Language, Jesus, the jargon people use, and everybody's at it. Everybody. There's not one sector that doesn't have this stuff. And I'll give you just one little story. I worked with an investment bank a few years ago, and I worked with his fund manager. He was bloody good at managing money, but he was quite shy and not very good at expressing it. And once a year in an investment bank, once a quarter, I think, the fund management desks invite the rest of the bank in to hear what they got to say. And you might imagine that these sort of talks are full of the most impenetrable banker's bollocks that they don't even understand. And I wasn't there to support him for his big show because I was elsewhere. But a friend of mine in the bank rang me up immediately after this thing, and he said, Michael, I must tell you this, I think you'd enjoy it. I was sitting next to the marketing director of this bank. And as we were going out at the end of it all, she turned to me, referring to the guy I'd been working with, and I'm going to quote verbatim. She said, that's the first fucking presentation I've understood in this bank for 3 years. And she's the marketing director. So please, you don't have to be simplistic, but use down-to-earth everyday language that you use with your friends, with your family. But unfortunately, so many of us, when we get into work, we put this hat on, which has got professional across the front of it, and we start talking the most amazing amount of bilge that we'd never use with our friends. So keep it down to earth. Now, those 3 that I've just shared with you are along how you sound and how you use your voice. But now I'd like to move to the more visual side and what you look like. And one of the biggest mistakes that people make, in my view, when they're presenting online, because make no illusion, we're going to be doing this stuff online for a long time to come. But I want to suggest that you do something counterintuitive here. And that is this, is that you look directly at the camera, that little black dot with a green light next to it or whatever, which I'm hopefully doing with you right now. It's highly counterintuitive. Every fiber of your being wants to look at the screen or the people that you're talking to. Avoid that temptation because they want to feel you looking directly at them. So it takes a bit of practice, but just get used to looking into the camera as opposed to the pictures. You can look occasionally at the other, but most of the time, I'd say 80% of the time, you want to be looking at the camera. And I find very few people do that. I mean, you can get away with it if you've got position power. I mean, I watched Spectator, the magazine podcast, actually webinar show, an hour last night. They do it every Thursday at 6 o'clock, and Andrew Neil runs it, but he's always looking down at the screen, but then he's Andrew Neil, and you're there to listen to him. You don't really give a damn if he's scratching his parts or doing a dance in the background. You'll still listen to Andrew Neil. He can get away with it. We can't so much. Now, have you ever noticed how an awful lot of people, when they come onto webinars or they're on Zoom or on Teams, they've got their cans on their head? Now, I can absolutely understand that. A lot of people have family in the background. They don't want family noises coming in. But it was interesting this morning, you remember the 3 ladies we've had, none of them use that. And there's something archetypal in all of us that has a little bit of a resistance to talking to somebody, interacting with them, if they got their cans on their head. And if you think it, if you're trying to communicate with a teenager and they got these in, what message is the teenager sending to you? Oh, I don't want to listen to you, I've got the music. I think they're a hindrance visually. It's below the level of consciousness, but I think most of us prefer to be spoken to and to engage with somebody who haven't got accoutrement on the head. Now, I know this sounds really good with this, but maybe just invest 25, 30 quid from Amazon in a decent plug-in microphone that goes into your laptop so that you can look good and also sound good. And yeah, here's the smile again. Behavior breeds behavior. And if you smile as you start and throughout your talk, it creates a very positive impression on your audience. And I don't know about you, but I find this difficult. I make quite a lot of videos for YouTube, and I think I've smiled, and I look at the playback and I think, Jesus, you po-faced bastard, it'd be so bloody miserable. And then I force it. I don't like forcing anything, but remember that most people, when they're viewing you on a webinar or a Zoom or a Teams call, they're watching on all sorts of devices, and it's a small representation of you on the screen. So you have to make the smile a little bit more emphatic, a little bit more obvious, and it makes a difference. It does. So those are some of the things that get in the way. But now I'd like to move on with you. Yes, sorry, the last 2 little things. There's not enough smiles, basically, with people online. So now let's look at perhaps the most important part of your talk. It's the first minute and a half, or 2 minutes tops, etc. I think this is where you build the rapport with your viewer and your listener. And this is where you get them on your side as such. There are many ways of doing this, but I'd like to share one with you today. And I need some audience participation for this. So in a second, I'm going to ask you to give me a subject that I can demonstrate this with. But first of all, let's go through it. Yes, guess what? Smile again. So many people look so per-faced, and there's many ways of kicking it off. But one of the best I've ever come across is this thing called the funnel. And it operates as it looks. You start very broad with a sort of universal subject that most people can identify with. And then you just distill it down until you get to the subject you're there to talk about. So before I go any further, perhaps, Paul, if you're watching in the chat box, if some of you could just put a subject there in the chat box for me that you'd like me to demonstrate a funnel on, because it's best if I demonstrate it.
Absolutely, we've got one already, quite topical. So David said, Maradona, cheat or hero?
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's very rare that a nation goes completely bonkers when one of its own has died. Now, we're in this country are considered pretty good at pageantry, and when the Queen Mother or somebody dies, there's been parades and there's lying in state in Great Hall of Westminster. But I want to talk about a guy here who was famous, but certainly not one of the great and the good, apart from the sport that he chose to be in. But he is now being afforded a 3-day national holiday to celebrate his demise and to celebrate his life. And that man is Diego Maradona. And what we're going to investigate is whether he's a saint or a hero. And that's my subject this morning. Are there any more, Paul, in the...
Absolutely. Feet was the next topic for you.
Good afternoon. It's extraordinary how some some parts of our body really don't get much attention at all. Our face gets a lot of attention, but man, shaving, etc., women, makeup, and our muscles. But there's one part that very rarely gets a look in. You won't find exercises for it in a gym, and you'll find very few little articles about it in health magazines. But we use them every single day. In fact, we're on them pretty well most of the day, and that is feet. And it's feet and how to treat them well that I'd like to talk to you about this afternoon. Give me one more.
Certainly. Favorite cartoon character?
Yeah, favorite cartoon character. Good afternoon. I don't know about you, but when I was a wee kid, my parents used to take me to all sorts of cartoons in the cinema. And even at a young age, and whatever age you are listening to this now, you'll all have been to see Disney cartoons and Pixar and everything else. But the one I want to talk about today is one that stands out, I think, from most, namely my favorite cartoon character, and that's Baloo in the Jungle Book. Blah, blah. But I hope that gives you a bit of a feel. It doesn't have to be long, it doesn't have to be funny, but it's that, I suppose, 10, 15 seconds of just bringing them in to want to listen to you. It's different. Most people don't do it this way, but it creates a sense of intrigue and it helps build rapport. Once you've have a pause after you said the subject, then if everybody knows you online, then you can just crack on. But if, let's say, there's an audience of 50 for you and 2 don't know you, nice little phrase is, for those of you I haven't met yet, my name is Michael and I'm blah, blah, blah. So for those of you I haven't met yet met on screen or off screen. So that's the start of it. Now, I want to move on to the next part. So you recognize that. Now, what I'm going to show you now, so simple, but 98% of talks, formal or informal, miss it. And it's this. What's the purpose of your talk? What's the aim? This is where you decide, and this is the first thing you think about in any presentation you give, formal or informal, online or offline, is you ask yourself, what do I want my viewers to think, do, or feel differently as a result of listening to me? And it's in 2 parts. I want to give you this so that you can do that. And for example, if I use one of the examples you gave me, and the aim of this presentation about feet is to share with you some very simple massage exercises and also touch on some oils you can use them so that your feet will last you and serve you well and feel appreciated. I'm going to give you this so that you can do that. Absolutely crucial. And I think if you think back to most of the events you've attended or presentations you listen to, they miss that. It's alluded to. They have a subject, but they very rarely have an aim. And that is the lodestar of your talk. And then once you've said the aim, then you lay out your stall. And I want to divide this into 3 parts. Firstly, Maradona's youth and what turned him into the footballer he was. Secondly, why he's regarded as a saint by so many people. And thirdly, why he's regarded as a sinner by many people. Chunk it into 3. There ain't a subject on earth you can't chunk into 3. So why 3? Well, you can go high chunk, there's a spiritual reason for it. It's no coincidence that in ancient Egypt, it was Isis, Osiris, and Horus. In the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. It's also an odd number, and odd numbers are much more memorable than even numbers. But you know what? The most useful reason of all is, and it's fundamental, is that your audience, your viewers, work away any more than 3. So don't make it difficult for them. So that's a suggested first 90 seconds, 20 seconds, I beg your pardon, 2 minutes. I wouldn't be much longer than that. But if you think about it, look, what you've done there, you greeted them with a smile, which puts them at ease. You funneled in, led them into the subject that you're talking about. They know who the hell you are and why you're talking about it. They know what's in it for them as a result of listening to you, and they know the scope of what you're going to cover. Et voila. Now, I've deliberately finished a little early because I'd love to have a few questions from you all. So we've got 5 minutes for questions. So do we? Oh, by the way, sorry, I mentioned the app that will come later on. All of that I've just shown you there is in my app in video form using different examples. By the way, it's free. There's no sneaky in-app upsells. And I don't know you've got the app, so I'm not going to bombard you with push notifications. I think I've sent one push notification in the past 3 years. So it's very much a standalone bit of kit, but it'll all be there on the app as well as a hell of a lot more. So can I throw it open in the last 4 minutes I've got to any questions, which Paul, hopefully you'll.
Yes, thank you very much, Michael. That was a wonderful snapshot of the topic, and there's so many great, useful takeaways. And I know I'm sort of trying to stare at the camera now, but it feels so unusual when you're facing.
It is. It's unnatural. It's weird, but
yes.
Okay.
The app, it's worth saying, the app is in the virtual event bag, which I've sent a link round to. There'll be an email going out as well. It's like having a mini encyclopedia in your pocket, isn't it?
It is rather. It is. There's a lot in there. There's a lot in there. It's all free.
Absolutely. So yes, if there are any questions, please do submit them into, very, very good question that's just come in. So any tips for stopping the during giving a presentation?
Great question. Thank you for that. Yes, I have. And first of all, let me sort of position it by saying, when's the last time you stopped doing anything because somebody told you to? It's a deeply ingrained habit. You have one of the most wonderful tools on the planet for helping with that. And it's this, your smartphone. So what I do is I would practice, do a little presentation or something into your smartphone, video-wise. I mean, you can do it on audio, but it has more impact if you do a video. And when you're watching the playback, your conscious brain, as well as your unconscious brain, is watching it. And the unconscious brain, if it hears lots of ums and ahs, it goes, oh, that's irritating. And it removes it almost automatically. That's one of the most powerful and the best ways, and all I'm going to say about removing ums and ahs. Listen to yourself on a recording. Your unconscious brain is listening as well, and it will remove it. Maybe not all of them immediately, but most of them will be removed. I hope that answers your question.
Excellent. Yes, thank you very much. Interesting one here as well. David says he records a radio show using quite a decent microphone, but I am aware of breathing noises, particularly from my nostrils. Do you have any ideas to avoid that?
No, I don't, frankly. Breathe differently. Or get a mic that isn't quite so damn sensitive. I mean, I'm not, David, you're a radio, you'll know far more about this than I will. But as you doubtless know, the most important thing on video, funnily enough, is sound. It's not the picture. I mean, you can get away with a pretty crappy picture, but you need decent sound. And just get a mic that isn't too sensitive. Having an uber sensitive one is not good because they'll hear every scratch, every breath, and that's not what you want. So it's too sensitive. Maybe move the mic a little bit further away from you. That's what I do, but desensitize it a little.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, and which touches on your point about headphones earlier on. A lot of speakers have the headphones where the microphone is so close to their mouth that you do get that the stress on the T and the S that almost becomes difficult to listen to at times.
I know. I find actually, funnily enough, some of the best microphones are those earphones you use for your mobile, where they have the microphone halfway down the lead, and that actually for sound that works extremely well. But it still has that negative connotation. If you've got something in your ears, and if you are engaging with me, you might be doing something else at the same time. It's an archetypal thing. It's not a conscious thing, because we all know the context. We know we're doing lots of Zoom calls where people are used to this. But even though the context and consciously, you can't ignore or it'd be rash to deny what the archetypal brain is thinking.
Excellent, thank you. There's one question in here which is really good because it ties into the course that's available in the virtual event bag. So someone said, do you recommend practicing without notes?
Wow. Yes, I do. Yes, I definitely do. And what I teach on my masterclass, it's I call it the Nirvana map, because it literally is what people have been looking for since God was a boy, but haven't really been able to find, as in how to install everything you want to say into your head just by, it's a bit like that, to be honest with you. So that you don't have to refer to it, you don't have to look down, you don't have to use notes, and you don't have to use slides. I'm using slides today because I've chosen for this limited half hour, I can get the points across to you quicker using this. But most people use slides because it's their crutch. It is their notes, it's their everything. And if you pull the plug, they'd be screwed. So yes, you'll find it in my book, Blow Your Own Horn, but come on my masterclass and find out.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so in the virtual event bag, yes, there's one free place up for grabs. So do have a look at that, have a look at the content. It will direct you through to a page where there's a bit more information. I'm conscious we have run over on time, which is a shame because we have some more questions, but I'm more than happy to put people in touch with you if you want to.
Please do, put them in touch with me and I would be delighted to answer them on LinkedIn or email, no problem. So may I just summarize, David?
You may indeed, yes.
In summary, and thank you so much for being here. We looked at three things. We had a quick reality check. What do people want? We also looked at what gets in the way and gave you a few tips around that. And we spent a little bit of time looking at the first 90 seconds. What I wanted to do was show you a few different ways of thinking and doing so that you live up to and exceed your marketing and basically stand out from others. That's if you go to my site, you'll be able to download that for free, presentationmaestro.com. And thank you so much for being here and for listening. And thanks for giving me the opportunity, Paul.
Yes, thank you for being involved, Michael. I really appreciate that. And just to finish up, Graham said, not a question, just like to say what a fantastic presentation. So I'd echo those sentiments.
Thank you very much indeed.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we're going to move on to the next talk now, which hopefully, as you'll see here, is Donald Munro. So I'm going to bring Donald into the conversation and we will take Michael out. There you are. So Donald's going to be talking about LinkedIn. We touched on LinkedIn yesterday a few times, actually, talking about how powerful it is in terms of marketing and sales development. But it is difficult to get right, and there are lots of quirks to it that I'm sure Donald will give us a lot more detail on. So Donald, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
I can indeed, yes. Are you?
Cool. Can you see that okay?
Perfect. Yes, that's great. I'll disappear into the background. Thanks, Donald.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Paul, and good afternoon, everyone. For those of you that were watching Michael's presentation, I think I've already broken about 3 of the rules before I even start. So this is going to be interesting. My name is Donald Munro. My company is Business Coach Scotland. What I'm going to talk to you about this afternoon is LinkedIn. How to make the most of LinkedIn for business development. I'm going to cover a number of tips, and hopefully by the end of this session, you'll have some really, really great ideas about how you can make more of this fantastic platform. A little bit about me. I'm based in Glasgow, clients all over Europe. I started off as an accountant about 100 years ago, got into sales and marketing. I've been working for myself since the late 90s. Business Coach Scotland is my 4th business. And my focus is helping business owners and managers get the best out of their teams and actually what they do. Big part of that is LinkedIn. I've been doing this for a number of years now. So that's really what I want to talk to you about this afternoon. So over the last number of years, these are some of the clients we've worked with. Some of these have been using LinkedIn really, really well, and some have simply not made the most of it for a number of reasons. We need to think about changing the way you look at LinkedIn. I would imagine most of you are on LinkedIn, but you're maybe not making the most of it. So by the end of this session today, I'm going to cover top 5 things that you can do to maximize your own profile so that you're attracting the right kind of people. Some areas to not do, some things to not think about. I'm going to give you a little bit of an activity plan so that when you're thinking about what you're doing over the next month, couple of months, some simple things to remember just to make sure you focus on. We've got time for the Q&A at the end. So if anyone has questions as you go, put them into the chat box. Paul will keep an eye on these and we'll pick these up when we get to the end. For everyone that comes on this session and has registered, Paul's going to send me the details and I'll do a free profile audit for everyone and send that over to you. So again, just remember, questions into the chat box. LinkedIn, what's it about and what's it for? A lot of people still aren't really too sure of what they can use this platform for. And because of that, they maybe just tend to not use it in the way that they could. I think a lot of people simply sit on their phone and scroll through and maybe like a few things, perhaps comment on a few things. There is so much more you can get out of this platform. Also, a lot of people say LinkedIn doesn't work for me, but the main reason for that is it's just not set up properly. They haven't set up their filters, their settings, and they're maybe getting overloaded with information, or maybe they're just not having their information visible to the right people. LinkedIn started in 2003, long before Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all these things. But somebody put it in the social media bucket. Now, I don't think of it as social media at all. I think it was digital business media. And if you operate on LinkedIn the way you would do on Facebook or Instagram, you're not going to get very far. It's not going to give you everything that you really need from it. I see LinkedIn as a toolkit. It's a massive toolkit, huge business database in the cloud. These numbers have possibly changed now. There's more than 25 million users here in the UK alone, 100 million in Europe, and then this slide has definitely changed. There's probably nearer 700 million users worldwide using this platform. And if you're in sales and marketing and LinkedIn isn't part of your strategy, you're missing a trick. There are so many things we can do with it. People use LinkedIn for so many different things. They use it to target specific clients or sectors. They use it to build their credibility, to become the go-to person in a particular sector. They use it to find referrals. They use it to drive traffic to their website. They use it to find a job or to find people. So there's lots of different things that we can do with the platform. It's not about selling LinkedIn. It's about building your credibility, showing how you help other people, how you help clients, how you help them achieve what it is they want to do by providing the service that you provide. Over 25 million users here in the UK, and 60% of all UK professionals are on LinkedIn. Now, for the businesses that I work in, which are very often professional services sectors, this is such a key part for them. I can almost guarantee that the clients and the prospects you're looking for are on this platform. So how do we make the most of this to find more of them? For anyone that's in sales, you understand these challenges. People don't take calls. People are using social media more and more. I think the last one is really interesting. People are more than halfway through a buying process before they even come and talk to a salesperson or reach out to somebody. They've done all their searching online. They've looked at people. They've probably looked at you. Now, I don't know if you agree with this. You can't win a piece of business unless you've got a relationship with a client. And every relationship starts with a conversation. And LinkedIn is such a great way to start conversations. It's a great way to open up discussions with so many different people. The other reason I really like LinkedIn is it's constantly changing. People are moving jobs. People are moving into new roles. New people are coming onto the platform all the time. I think something like 2 people are joining every second. This means there are a huge amount of people there and available for you to talk to. Let's start with the detail. All roads lead back to your profile, your LinkedIn profile. And this has got to be absolutely spot on. Because, again, most new connections these days are digital. We've talked about lockdown in different tiers, and I think more people are connecting more online now, either through Facebook, through LinkedIn, through webinars like this, through emails, through Teams, and they're not actually meeting in person. And because we're meeting digitally, your brand is really, really important, and you're not there to justify what's in your profile. People make decisions very, very quickly. They'll take a look at your profile and decide, am I going to read this or not? And there is so much that you can do very quickly, very easily, to make sure you're buying the next 30 seconds of someone's time. So let's just take a closer look at that. In the top 3 seconds, the first 3 seconds, rather, here's what people are going to be looking at. They're going to look at the banner, which is behind your photo. They're going to check that out. They're going to work out, is this the kind of business that I want to be involved with? Is this the kind of person that is doing what I need right now? They're going to check out your photo, see what you look like. If you haven't got a photo, please add one. It's so simple and so straightforward. This is one of the most important areas, your headline. It's that section just beneath your name. This is what tells people what you do for them. Most people aren't using it for this. They're just not making the most of this at all. They're going to look at your contact information to find out how to reach you. And with the new settings and the new view of LinkedIn, the top 2 or 3 lines of your About section are visible. This is the part where you get to tell people what it is you do. And again, I don't think people are making the most of that. So let's go through each one of these in a bit of detail. Ignore the section and page numbers. This is all from the training courses that we provide. So these are lifted straight from that. Your background banner, I think, is like, it's got to be like your virtual reception, so that when someone comes to your LinkedIn page, they get an idea of what it is you do. Extra points if anyone knows where that is, by the way. It'd be interesting to see that in the chat box. There's a couple of examples from a client that we worked with, one with the banner and one without. Now, you'll know the people that don't have a banner, they've got the constellation type picture. Whereas in Claire's banner, you can see the client has got their name, they've got a little statement about what they do, and they've got a great picture. Now, these are really, really easy for you to create yourselves. And if you're part of a bigger organization, you start to see where the consistency really works, where everyone's got a banner that looks really good, and you start to see, yep, we're seeing a bit of consistency here. Little tip, please make a note of this. When you're saving either your photograph or your banner picture, save it as a keyword, so that if you call your banner picture business coaching Scotland, for example, if someone Googles that, then my banner will come up and it'll take them straight to my LinkedIn page. So pick the name of the picture to do with what it is you do, and use your keywords as part of that. I help clients create banners, or I simply point them to Canva. Canva is so simple, really easy to use. It's a free resource. You can download it. You can combine pictures, text, images, whatever you decide. It tells you to use the custom dimensions for your LinkedIn banner. Your photograph. We must have a photograph, folks. And you need to think, what impression do I really want to give? Think about who your target audience is. Think about who you're marketing to. Who do you want to be attracted to your profile? And you need to kind of mirror that. And you simply must have a photograph. These are all photos from LinkedIn. And okay, I know everyone's going to have their favorite. I personally can't resist the kid in a JCB. I don't know who would put that as their profile picture, but there you go. And yet, to be fair, the guy in the tash is everyone's favorite. So think about eye contact. I'm not saying put pictures of your kids on, but our eyes are so expressive. And if you manage to have a professional photograph done where you're shown, Michael talked about this later, where we're talking to the camera, and the eye contact is there, it makes such a difference. So if you can have a professional headshot done, absolutely great. It really helps. The next one is your contact information. Now, when we used to do face-to-face training, I always ask the question, is anyone there? Are people on LinkedIn because they want to be found? I would imagine they are. In that case, I don't understand why people don't complete the contact information. Now, here's an example of a fully filled out contact information page. You could have your own personal number plate or your personal name at the very top. Most people, when they join LinkedIn, your LinkedIn profile will be called something like Donald-Monroe-B 2G3496. Now, it's very easy to go on and select your own personalized name that goes onto your profile. And again, it just makes it easier for Google to find you when people are searching. You've got room for 3 different websites there. So you can link to different pages of your own website. You could link to company pages, or you can send people information that they want to, that they're interested in finding out about. I would always put a phone number. It's just simple, you know. We all get calls from people we don't want, but we can deal with them. If you don't put a phone number, people aren't going to reach out to you. Address, email. I'm not sure if the Twitter link is still there. In some versions, that's gone. By the way, everything I'm talking about today, you can do on the free version of LinkedIn. Everything. There's one thing that will be useful to you when it comes to premium, but I'll talk about that later on. The next one is your headline. Now, people really must have misunderstood this. Google will read this. So that if someone types in again, if somebody puts into Google business coaching in Scotland, my profile will come up because I've got those headings, those words in my headline. Use the keywords to put into your headline, just so that you know it's this section beneath your name. Most people simply have manager, partner, director, their job title. That's not what this section is about. Think about what it is you do for your clients, and tell people that in the headline. One of the best ways to do that is simply work out what do people put into Google to find you. Now, you've got 120 spaces in that section, so make the most of them and front load the information. The first 70 spaces are a priority. I'll tell you about that in a second. There is a wee hack you could be aware of here. If you want more information in your headline, use your mobile to do it. It's not that easy to edit when you're doing it on your phone, but you can get a lot more than 120 spaces. Don't know why, it's just the way the app's been developed. But you need to make the first 70 spaces a priority, because when you share or comment on an article, your name will appear and it will include the first 70 characters of your headline. So you're giving them that information straight away. So it's a bit more visibility for you and for what you do. The summary section. This has changed a little bit with the new version. It's now called the About section. There are now 2,600 characters in there. And again, most people just do not make the most of this. This is a fantastic opportunity for you to explain what it is you do. Talk about the businesses, or the types of businesses, or the sectors that you work in. Talk about the challenges that those clients have, and talk about how you can help them. The first 2 or 3 lines are visible. So again, make them really hit the spot. Make sure they're really hitting the mark for you. It needs to be visually aligned and pleasing. It needs to be aligned with what you do. And again, show that you understand what problems or challenges your clients are having. You must have a call to action. You simply must. Now, I know we've said in the contact information, you've got your name, your phone number, your email, and so on, but that is only available to first level contacts. Now, I know I have lots of second degree contacts looking at my profile, so I want them to be able to reach me as well. So in my About section and in my Current Experience section, I've got my call to action and contact information. Yeah, it might mean I get some emails from people that I'm not interested in, but do you know what? I can deal with that. I would rather give people a way to reach me through LinkedIn. The section at the bottom, this is so easy to use as well. Add some media clips, some photographs, some bits of video, some presentations, whatever it is you've got. It just makes your profile stand out a little more and look a little bit more interesting. When you're thinking about what to put in your About section, describe your ideal client. Think about what their job title is, what challenges they have. What else are they buying, perhaps, that you might be able to jump onto? What else do you know about them? Once you look at who your ideal client is, it should really allow you to write your About section in the way that is engaging to the right kind of people. Because we can all get loads and loads of contacts from people that we might not want to be connected to. What we want are connection requests from the people that are going to be great clients or prospects for us. So just to quickly go back over the top 5 that people are going to look at quickly. Background banner, very easy to do, set it up in Canva. Your photo, get it right. If you haven't got one, please add one. Make sure it's current. There's nothing worse than having an old photo in there and people then come and see you and you go, hang on a minute, that's not the guy I've just been talking to. Get your headline right. If there's one thing you should take from this, folks, get your headline right. It will make such a difference. Completely fill out your contact information and work on getting your About section spot on. Okay, so these are the top 5 things. In the training course that we have, we cover about 15 different areas in your profile. There's a lot more than this, but we don't have a lot of time for that just now. What I'd like to do is talk about what not to do on LinkedIn. You're all probably, you've been on it for a while, or maybe you're just getting used to it. You're flicking through it on screen, you're going through it on your phone, you're liking, sharing, and so on. Here's some don't do's. When you're looking to connect with somebody, don't just press the connect button. It takes 10 seconds to write a little message. Messages or connection requests with a message are much more likely to be accepted. And the challenge is, if you send a connection request to somebody and they don't accept it, you've lost your opportunity with that person. So it's worth taking the time to get that invitation right. And it could be something simple like, hi, we met at an exhibition, I've liked some of your content, let's connect here. Nice and simple and straightforward. When you do connect with someone, I'm sure you've all had this, as soon as you press connect, you immediately get a sales message back because somebody's using a robot that sends a message as soon as you connect. Don't do that. There's nothing worse than a sales message coming straight at you. Build some rapport first. Get to know the person, the company, the individual. What's worse, I think, is when people send a message saying, this is what we do, I'm sure I can help you, here's my calendar, just click a slot and we'll have a chat. I don't even know anything about you yet. I think that's not the way to go about it. Another thing to avoid doing, touched on earlier, don't put on LinkedIn what you would put on Facebook. Nobody wants to see pictures of you coming back from your stag night. Stick to business. I think LinkedIn are changing. They're making the platform more engaging, but stick to business, stick to professionalism, and it will stand you in good stead. One bonus, don't do, when somebody does connect with you, just send them a quick message back. Thanks for connecting. Let's keep in touch. Start a conversation. Okay, so don't forget to reply. Okay. what do you actually want to get out of LinkedIn? For most of the clients I talk to, they want to find more business. So how do we break that down? Do we need more connections? If you've got less than 500, then yes, you do need more connections. Do we need more engagement? If you're not starting conversations or talking to people on LinkedIn, then yes, you do need more engagement. Do you need to raise your credibility? Do you have testimonials? Do you have enough text that tells people exactly what it is you do? So think about what you want to achieve. Set yourself a goal, create a plan, which I'm going to give you some ideas for in a second, and then just work it, do the activity. Now, the activity is kind of twofold. The best way for you to get the most out of LinkedIn is to be active, is to be using the platform. How do you stand out from the crowd? There are shed loads of posts and people and comments. How do you stand out? And it's about building rapport, building digital rapport with the people that you're engaging with. And you do that, like, comment, share, start a conversation. I even suggest sometimes before you connect with somebody, have a look at what they've posted, comment on it, start a conversation, so that when you do send them that connection request, they go, oh, that's Donald, I've engaged with him, yep, I'll accept that connection request. This is easy to do. I was talking to a client the other day, and they've set themselves a goal of sending 10 messages a day. I think that's maybe a bit much, but they're sending messages every day to new people to start conversations. Now that's great, because by the end of a week, they're going to have an awful lot of new conversations that will have started. Not everyone will, granted, but you could start lots of conversations this way. So let's say you want to increase your connections, and one way to raise your visibility is to have lots and lots of connections. Apart from the obvious things that you should be doing, like going through all your business cards and making sure you're connected to people you've met, or going through your emails, thinking about where you worked before, thinking about clients, prospects, suppliers. Make sure you're connected to all of them, because the more connections you have, the more pathways there are back to your profile. For every individual connection that comes to you, there could be 500 or 1,000 more connections behind that. And that's why I think having lots of connections is valuable and important. You may only work with a small number, with a select group, but the more connections you've got, the more chances you've got of people finding your profile and finding what you do. So LinkedIn will show you this. LinkedIn will show you who's viewed your profile. And this tells you the number of people that have viewed your profile in the last 90 days. Now, this is one of the free premium things I was talking about. If you're on the free version of LinkedIn, you will only see the last 5 people that viewed your profile. So you kind of need to be looking at this every day. And if there's interesting people that have come to look at you, send them an invitation. They've come to you for a reason. They've looked at your profile for a reason. Start a conversation with them. If you're on the premium version, you will see every one of those people in the last 90 days. And that can be great, because if you miss a couple of days, you can always go back. The other great value to this, I think, is with premium, okay, it might be £70 a month, £80 a month, whatever one you decide, but you can switch it on and off. You could run premium for 2 months, then switch it off. Run it again, then switch it off. It's entirely up to you how you manage that. So one of the first things that LinkedIn will show you is who viewed your profile. I regularly check this, have a look, and if there are interesting people there that you're not connected to, connection request. Again, with the new view of the new layout of LinkedIn, below your network, if you go into manage my network, it will give you more suggestions. People that you might know from the university you were at, people that you might know who have the same role as you, people that you might know from second level connections. Now, all of this is dependent on what you've got in your profile. There's an algorithm running that says these are the people that might be interested in connecting with you, but it's based on what's in your profile. So again, to come back to it, if you don't get your profile right, tell people what it is you do, tell people how you help them, demonstrate that you understand their challenges, then it's going to show the wrong people up, if that makes sense. There are a lot more ways that LinkedIn will show you, but I'm kind of short for time just now. So thinking about what you want to achieve, okay, so let's say it is more connections. Let's just say over the next 30 days, what could you do? Okay, set yourself a target of the number of connections you want to have by this time next month. Here's what you must do. Every day you need to participate. Set aside 20 minutes a day, do it first thing in the morning. A lot of people I knew used to do it on their way into work, on the train, on the bus. Okay, that's not happening now, but take the first 20 minutes of your day to go onto LinkedIn. Comment on things, like some articles. Just start building visibility, building digital rapport with people who might be of interest to you. Start conversations. Start conversations with those people that you spoke to ages ago or you haven't spoken with for a while. Every week, at least every week, you must share a post. Sharing posts is so easy and so straightforward, to be honest. You could share your own information. You could write a post yourself, or you could share a post that someone else has written. Share an article. Share a blog post that might be of value to your contacts. At least weekly, more if you can do it. Once a month, you need to do some admin, like anything else. Like you need to do your accounts, you need to do whatever. Review what you've got in your profile, maybe tweak a few words. This can be of interest because if you change a couple of words, LinkedIn is going to put your profile back up to the to be viewed again because there's changes in it. You need to go into manage your invitations. If you've sent lots of invitations that haven't been accepted, you need to withdraw them because it doesn't look good if they're there for a while. The one thing that most people just don't know about, and you must do, download all your contacts. It's in settings, you can go in and find how to download your contact information. It'll just give you a list of every single one of your contacts, their job title, their company. It used to give you an email address, but since the fabulous GDPR, we don't get that anymore, which is unfortunate. So these are some of the must-dos that I know will be valuable to you. Now, as I say, for everyone that's registered, I'll get the details from Paul, and I'll do an audit on your profile. It covers 15 areas, but I'll give you a score on each one, and you'll get some ideas on how you could improve that. Okay, if you're there, Paul, I'll open to you, and we can take some questions. I'm not sure if I've run over, but we're a wee bit late starting.
Okay, there's plenty of content in there, so thank you so much, Donald. And yeah, it's fascinating looking. I mean, I thought my LinkedIn was great, it was perfect, but then I think I spoke to you and you said, oh, should I send that through to your Yahoo email address? I thought, no, don't send it to Yahoo. Why would you not send it to my one? You said it's on your profile.
Yep.
I thought, right, I need to watch this webinar and I need to make some notes.
Good.
We do have some questions come in that are quite interesting, actually. So okay. David's asking, what are your thoughts on connecting with competitors? I studiously avoid doing so.
Well, David, that's a great question, actually. I avoid connecting with competitors as well. I just don't want them to see necessarily what I'm doing or see who I'm connected to. What you can do, of course, is if you want to keep an eye on what your competitors are doing, is you could follow the company, you could follow them. And what that would mean is whenever they put a post on LinkedIn, it'll appear in your notification. So you could go and check out what they are doing. The chances of them knowing you're following them are very slim. They probably would have no idea. So I wouldn't necessarily connect with them, but I would maybe follow what they're doing.
Great advice. Thank you very much. Well, yeah, Seb's got a question here, which I'd love to get your thoughts on. I myself have a baby face, and in terms of LinkedIn profile photos, look quite young. Do you have any tips around this? Because he doesn't want people to be put off thinking he might be unexperienced. Or inexperienced.
Well, great that you've got a baby face. That's fantastic. That will stand you in good stead in the years to come. it's not only about the face. So think about what's in your headline. You know, you can talk about the number of years you've been working in something, because that'll help to bolster your credibility. Think about what's in your about section, or the photograph could demonstrate what you do. I don't know what it is you do, but it may be a demonstration of you doing something. I've never had that question, to be honest. So hopefully that might be of some help. Good question though.
Yes, I thought that'd be an interesting one for you. It's not something I'd ever before, but it's a good question. So yeah, I'm conscious of time, but I'll just pick perhaps one or two more. There's some really positive comments coming in saying thank you, a great presentation.
Cool, thank you.
Well, there's a huge question at the bottom there from Hasnan, who said, would you recommend Sales Navigator?
It depends on what you want to do. Sales Navigator is a fantastic tool for digging deeper into LinkedIn. It gives you a lot more filters than the normal LinkedIn will do, because it allows you to search by, you know, people that have recently joined, people that have been active in the last 3 months. You can have salary brackets in there. If you're a really heavy hitting prospector in sales and marketing, then Navigator can be well worthwhile. The best thing to do is try it out, to be honest. Pay for it for a month, see what you can do with it, and you use it to build up. It's almost like for building campaigns, or sales and marketing campaigns, connected with lots and lots of people from a company. But it is a valuable resource, yeah.
Absolutely. I think the first 30 days are free as well, aren't they? They normally have a trial for the...
They would, absolutely, they would. And you know what? You can take advantage of that more than once. And another thing to be aware of, I went to renew, I went to stop my premium just a month or so ago, because I only switch it on every now and then. And it said, because of what's happening just now, you can have LinkedIn free for the next few months. So if you don't ask the question, you know, you never know what you get.
I also benefited from that. Yes, I thought, actually, I'll take that off for a couple of months. Yeah. And then, yeah, they said, have it free for the next 3 months.
Exactly.
Said, okay, fair enough. Thank you very much. Excellent. Yeah, I'm very conscious of time. So if anyone would like a LinkedIn profile audit, if you just say yes in the chat box, I'll send round an email as well with more details. You leave your details in the virtual event bag. There's plenty of ways, but we will be able to connect you with Donald there.
Okay. And the offer is there as well for anyone that wants to take advantage of some of the codes. I know you'll send that out, Paul.
Yeah, cool. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thanks again, Paul. And I don't know if Michael was watching. I hope I haven't transgressed in too many of his areas. That was a really interesting presentation. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you very much, Donald. Appreciate that.
All right.
So I was trying to just switch slides there. So yes, thank you, Donald. We'll move on to the last talk of the day, last but hopefully not least, because it's actually myself that's going to be talking. As you can see there, 6 crucial considerations when using webinars as a marketing tool. So what we're going to start off with, so bear with me because I'm just trying to work 2 systems here as I go. We have a quick poll question that I'm just going to ask, which requires a bit of clarification, because when we're talking about webinars, it's important that I make the distinction here that webinars and meetings are slightly different. So a meeting you've probably been on where everyone can speak, everyone can share their camera. It's a little bit more chaotic. It's more of an open forum. Webinars, as you're attending today, it's a one-way stream. It's a one-way broadcast. So just having a look here, I'm going to launch a poll question. What's your experience with webinars, which would be really helpful to know? Have you just attended webinars like you're doing so today? Have you actually hosted one of the webinars, perhaps alone, or have you hosted a broadcast supported by a team, either internal or external? Have you hosted multiple broadcast webinars? Are you a bit more of a pro? So I'm going to launch that poll question if I can find my mouse now. Okay, that's really interesting to know. So we have about 75% of you have just attended webinars. A couple of people have just done the one, and then there's a few of you who are a bit more experienced. So it's obviously a huge topic. Webinars, a hot topic this year. So we're going to dive into this now. Okay, so here's what I'm going to talk about for the next half an hour. I'm going to start with the planning and thinking about why we're putting on a webinar. We'll move on to the justification and thinking about, will there be an audience for the webinar that I'm planning? I'll then touch on content, so looking at the format, what should be included, what shouldn't. And we'll touch on the setup as well, which is really important. So looking at what platforms you're going to use, what providers, what team you're going to need in place. From there, we will then go to the call to action. I think it's important in a marketing webinar that we talk about the call to action. And then finally, we'll explore a couple of other considerations, things to be aware of if you are planning a webinar. And I'll also briefly touch on why listen to me to start with, because I think that's very important. So as you can tell from this fantastic stock image, I'm not from a marketing background. You can probably tell that from my slides as well, that I'm not from a creative or design background. I'm from a sales background. So I've worked in recruitment, I've sold Sky warranties, home insurance, water filter contracts, all sorts of sales positions. But in 2017, early 2017, I was brought in as head of corporate growth in a veterinary CPD company who provided education through webinars. And they had a huge, highly engaged audience that consumed content and paid a subscription to view the content. But there was an obvious additional revenue stream from advertising and sponsorship. So I was brought in to grow that part of the business and did so very successfully. And it was at that point I realized just the power that webinars have in terms of lead generation and the power for sponsors. So you may be thinking at this point, well, it sounds great, but webinars wouldn't work for me. We're too small of a business, or it's not right for our industry, or anything along those lines. And so this next slide is just really to show that these are the companies I've worked with on webinars for. And so you can see that it ranges from multi-billion-dollar corporations like Bayer and Nestle Purina, all the way down to one-man bands, your accountants, insurance, charities, government agencies, recruitment, media. Pretty much every industry we can put on a webinar and make it valuable to you. So I'd really keep an open mind is what I'd say. So let's start with the plan. And I'm a firm believer that every good presentation should have a quote somewhere included. So this one's from Benjamin Franklin: failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So start at the beginning and really think about why you want to put on a webinar. Is it just because your competition are putting on webinars? Is it a hot topic? Or do you have expertise within your business that you really want to leverage and you want to show people that you know? You really need to set this out from the start as to why you want to put on a webinar, because it's time and effort intensive. So it's not easy. So if there's not a good reason behind it, don't do it. What's your objective and how are you going to attain that objective is really important. So I've hosted webinars in each of these categories, and you could use webinars for a credibility piece. Perhaps you want to position yourself as an authority within the industry. It can be to educate an audience. Demonstration, perhaps you've got a product or service which is a little bit unusual or novel or innovative, and you need to demonstrate it to an audience rather than just trying to get the message across through ads, for example, or an email. So they can be really powerful in each of these categories, but we're going to really focus on lead generation for this presentation. As with any marketing content, as I'm sure you're aware, you'll need to think about who your audience is and tailor it for your audience. But actually, there's some extra points within this which are really important to consider. So not just who, but how that will affect the webinar that you're putting on and how the webinar will reflect on you to that audience. And so what I mean by that is, if you have, for example, if you're hosting a webinar for tech-savvy young developers in Silicon Valley, you're going to want a more sophisticated system than Zoom. You're going to want something that's innovative and looks fancy and has high functionality. On the flip side of that, if you're I don't know, for example, explaining new COVID restrictions to a care home, you're probably going to want to have something that's user-friendly and that people can understand and they don't need to think about too much. So tailor the system that you use as well as the content to the audience. Country is a really important one for two reasons, actually, that people sometimes don't think about. Firstly, time zone. If you've got customers across Europe and you want to put on a webinar at 8 till 9, for example, in the evening, Be aware that if you've got customers in Greece or Cyprus or anywhere like that, it's actually a lot later for them. So you probably won't get that audience on. Just be aware of time zones if you're across borders. And the second part of that is language. So for example, France, if you have an audience in France, be aware that they probably won't want to use a system that's entirely in English. You'll need to have French landing pages. You'll need to have a system that has help pages in the native language. So just be aware of who you're presenting the webinar to and get that really clear in your mind. So then thinking about justification. So if you have an objective in mind, it's lead gen, you've thought about your audience, you then sort of move on to the will they, won't they scenario of will people turn up? So if you're a fan of stock images, I have some fantastic, very cheesy stock images coming up. So I hope you enjoy those. But will people turn up? There are 4 main reasons why someone would attend a webinar that you've put on. And I've broken them down here. So the first one is CPD. If there's a mandatory requirement to stay on a register or to continue practicing, you have to have completed a certain number of hours per year. You can be fairly confident that there's an audience for your content. The flip side of that is if that's an established industry and there's always been that requirement, then you will already have a lot of competition. So you need to find a USP or some way to distinguish yourself and your content from your competitors. The second reason, it seems obvious, but we consume content that we're interested in. And if people find your webinar content interesting, they're likely to show up, they're likely to attend or register. So this could be, for example, if you have if you're in a niche industry, if you have something which is a particular interest piece. So for example, football podcasts are a fantastic example because there's no particular value to the audience, but they're hugely popular because it's interesting to people. So if you can find a category, and panel discussions tend to be quite good for this, or a state of the industry address, or a report on the industry, they tend to be quite good for interesting for the interesting category. The third one is if people will attend if they think that the webinar will be useful or valuable to them. So if it will help them in some way. So it could be that you're explaining new legislation that's coming into effect in layman's terms. So someone will find that really useful or valuable. It could be that you're putting on a marketing masterclass and some of the audience are business owners who don't know too much about marketing, like myself. So it's really valuable to me to listen to these talks. So it's worthwhile attending. And the final category is it's coming from a trusted source. So it could be that you're putting a webinar on for your customers. They already know you, they trust you. If you put something on for them, they trust that it's worth them turning up. Or on the flip side of that, it could be that it's a big name within the industry. So for example, if Alan Sugar or Theo Paphitis put on a webinar, people would turn up because they know it's a trusted source. And won't they? Why wouldn't people turn up? So there's a lot of considerations here. Everyone is busy right now. Everyone that's working, I guarantee you, is a lot busier than they were at the start of the year. So you have to really capture people's attention, otherwise they won't turn up. Time is slightly different from actually having the time, is the time of day that you put it on. So I touched on it with time zones, but if you're putting on a webinar from 3 till 4, for example, and your cohort is parents, they're probably going to be on the school run, so they might not turn up. Content overload is a huge one. Since, well, at the start of lockdown, everyone was clamoring for content. As summer drew on and every company started producing content, suddenly there was content overload and it became very difficult to capture people's attention like it was at the start of the year. So be aware that there's a lot of content being produced here, so you need to find a way to distinguish yourself. It may just be that people forget that it's on. You need to try to remind them as much as possible, but you know, life gets in the way. They may forget that the webinar is taking place. They won't turn up. They certainly won't turn up if there's no value to them. So if they don't think that it's going to be valuable or helpful or interesting to them, they won't turn up. Cost is a big one. If you're charging for your webinars, people won't turn up. That's just a given of life. And it may be that you're okay with that because you want people who are willing to spend money in your industry, for example, but that's one of the reasons that people won't turn up. If you put on free content, you can be fairly confident that you'll get some audience. It may just be that people prefer face-to-face. There's lots of these people around, and I completely understand it. People just don't like webinars. They might not turn up. So the point I was trying to make here is there are a lot more reasons that people won't turn up than they will. So you have to make your content as engaging as possible. So then thinking about the content, moving on to section 3 in this whistle-stop tour. The format. So there's various different ways or types of webinar that you can put on that could all be very engaging. It could be a single broadcast. It could just be one person talking about one topic to an audience, and that's your webinar. It could be a series or course, an extended a series across the same topic or a variety of topics if you want. It could be an online conference or a masterclass like we've put on here. So there's a lot of different topics within a 1 or 2 day period. Could be a virtual exhibition or conference hall, panel discussion, quiz. If that tends to work better if you have existing customers rather than trying to get prospects into your company. So there's lots of different ways that you can use webinars, and a lot of people think as well, moving on to the next slide, that it has to be a PowerPoint presentation with you in the corner. It doesn't at all. This clip that I have here that I will just play for you. This was at the sales masterclass we put on in June, and Malcolm Smith, who was talking about negotiations, is a fantastic speaker. He speaks on the stage all the time, and webinars aren't his thing. But he agreed to do a talk for us, and when I asked about his content, he said, I'm just going to be on camera, I'm going to have a flip chart behind me. And I panicked at first. I thought, you have to have a PowerPoint presentation. But actually, it was one of the best talks by far that I think we've ever hosted. And I'll just sort of show you here.
One page on a flip chart next to me, which is the classic 7 phases of a negotiation: deciding to do it, planning, the preamble in a room, the opening position, how you bargain, how you get to some form of summary agreement, and in the end, some form of review. So I'm very simply going to go through those 7 phases and give you some tips and hints. I'm trying not to do a top 10 because that will take hours. It's lovely to talk to you. I suppose the first thing to say to you is that, of course, in this country, in the United Kingdom and Northern Europe and North America especially, we're not very good at negotiating.
So that he just had a flipboard behind him and was just talking about things and talking to camera, and it worked very well. So don't feel like you have to do a PowerPoint presentation. This is, again, a nice way to distinguish yourself from your competition. So
One page on a flip.
Then we look at the nitty-gritty in terms of the content. So there's a few top tips that I have here. In terms of the title, you need to make sure that it grabs people's attention and it tells them what they're going to get from it. So for example, yesterday, Kamar did a really good talk on SEO. But if he just had the title as SEO for your website, it's not exciting. It doesn't give you anything. The audience doesn't get excited by it. What he had instead was how to optimize your website to generate more leads. So it's how you can do something to get something in return. And that's a really powerful way of creating a title. One of the things you may have noticed today is that numbers are good in a title as well. So we had Caroline's 5 top tips, Joe's 6 steps to marketing clarity, 6 crucial considerations here. Researchers found, On24 did some really good piece on this, that 3, 5, 6, 7, or 10 are really good numbers to have in your webinar title. I don't know why, but they just seem to resonate. So try to include that if you can. I always find it's a good idea to have a schedule or content at the beginning. Tell people what you're going to talk about, because sometimes at the start you tend to do a bit of an introduction. Some people won't find it interesting. They may drop off. If you let them know that exactly what the content is that's coming up, they will think, okay, I do want to stay for section 4 because that sounds like something I need to know, or that's something I don't know about already. Imagery and text is really important. If you are doing a PowerPoint presentation, I'm sure most of you know this anyway, use graphs, use pictures. Don't have it really text heavy, because especially in this consideration for lead generation, you want people to be looking at you, talking to you. You want that human engagement with them. You don't want them to just be reading a page. Otherwise, you might as well send them an email. Try to have some interaction. Obviously, I had a poll question at the start. Try and have something that just keeps your audience engaged, because especially on a long day like this, it can be easy to just sit back, be passive, and you don't want to lose your audience. You want to keep them captivated. You want to keep them listening and keep them coming back for more. Timing's a really important one. So if you say that you're going to put on a 30-minute webinar, it's okay to do a 25-minute webinar. It's okay to do a 35-minute webinar. Do not then put on a 60-minute webinar, because your audience will drop off and they won't appreciate it. Enthusiasm. So I'm really trying to be enthusiastic here. I'm not a natural presenter, but make sure that you're not just presenting, reading off your slides, because that's not engaging for anyone. Sorry. Now we're going to go on to the fourth chunk, the fourth section there, setup. So if you've had the plan, you've put the content together, you understand what you're going to do, you understand what your objectives are, how do you set it up? As this poor confused chap is showing you here, there are lots of different providers for webinars. At the start of the year, you only really had Zoom, GoToWebinar, and WebEx. And funnily enough, Zoom weren't even actually the market leaders. I think WebEx were. But Zoom was very user-friendly, and it was simple. It was kind of more tailored towards the consumer rather than being very corporate like GoTo and WebEx were. And so that's why it just took off. The great thing about this year and people working from home and this working from home revolution is that suddenly providers have been popping up out of nowhere. People like Webinar Jam, who are a browser-based webinar provider. It was very, very low quality last year. I had a look at them when I was setting up this business. Was not a fan. They have massively, massively, massively improved their systems. Teams is not good for webinars. It's good for an internal team meeting, not so good for webinars, but it's one to be aware of, and different people have different preferences. Zoom is cheap, it's reliable, it's user-friendly, so that's good, but it's not as fancy or sophisticated as some of the other providers. So it really does just depend on your audience, your expertise, and the type of content you're putting on. I'll just touch on this very quickly. On24, it's a very, very nice platform that I'm going to be using more of next year. As you can see here, I'll try and show you with my mouse. You've got the media player, so you've got the person on camera. You've then got their slides next to it, so you don't cover up any of the slides. You can put a speaker bio in there. Resource list that people can download as you're talking. There's a Q&A box that's easily visible, social feeds. You can configure it any way you want. You can put any colors into the background. It's a very, very smart platform. The difficulty is, particularly if you're using external speakers, you then have to train people in the platform that you're using. So my one piece of advice is certainly whatever platform you use, master it. Practice, 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 and make sure that you know the system, but also what could go wrong in that system, how to fix it, have a contingency plan. If you don't want to put all that time in, the obvious answer is work with someone who does know the platforms, or use someone for tech support. Me, ideally, but anyone really that knows the platforms. So looking at the call to action, it's very important, and there's a nice action shot there. There are lots of different ways that you can have a call to action within a webinar, but it's important to think about, this is not a cold outreach. These people, you have their details because they've registered for the webinar, and you can ask for their name, their job title, as I did for this, how many people within the organization. You can obtain this information from the people beforehand, so it's slightly different to other marketing activities perhaps. They're semi-qualified as well. These people have literally registered an interest in the topic you're talking about. So if it's your expertise, if it's what you do on a day-to-day basis, you know that they're interested in what you do, and it's really powerful in that sense. What I will say is, don't necessarily expect that after putting on one webinar and someone's joined your community effectively for that webinar, don't expect them to immediately buy something from you afterwards. They're not going to just go straight to your website. And in terms of setting up your webinar, it doesn't tend to work very well that you have, you talk about a subject, get to the end, big pitch, and say, here you go, here's the link, click here. Sometimes it works if you can really demonstrate true value on that webinar and you can create urgency and you're a good salesperson, then possibly. What I would advise though is to use it slightly differently, is to use the webinar to bring people into your community and make them trust you, essentially. Make them see you as a trusted advisor, as a trusted source. Then start them slightly earlier in the sales process, in the sales funnel, if you will. So what I would suggest is perhaps you are registering them for another webinar, the next webinar, to make sure you're keeping them engaged. Perhaps you have some sort of resource or download that you can send to them after the webinar. Have something that's a bit of a softer call to action that just keeps them engaged and you keep building that trust. So coming towards the end now, other considerations when thinking about webinars. So there's general considerations. See what I did there? The first thing I would say is presenting a webinar is not easy. It's a completely different skill set to presenting in a room. I've had expert speakers who have presented in conferences in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people, and they really struggle on webinar because you've got no feedback loop. It's not like a sales meeting where I would normally play off people. You can ask them questions, you can think about what's being said. You effectively have to be a presenter, and presenting is not easy. So be aware of that before you start. And if it's your first time presenting a webinar, I'd massively, massively recommend, as you can see down there, recording it, because it just gives you that safety net, really. And some of you may have realized that this is a recording now. And that's more for the fact that I don't have anyone on tech support. So I need to make sure that I'm monitoring all the text box, the Q&A box and the chat box whilst this webinar is going on. It's almost impossible to present a webinar and to monitor all these boxes at the same time. Have someone working with you as well. That's really important. If you can have someone on tech support whilst you're supporting so that you just focus on delivering your content, it becomes a lot better. It becomes a lot more valuable and a lot more engaging. Make sure that you are, or someone is, monitoring the chat box and the Q&A box. If it's open and people are putting stuff in there, particularly if they're having technical issues, or they could be alerting you to you're having technical issues, make sure that somebody is monitoring that. Most of my webinars, I tend to do Q&A at the end of the talk. So we collate the questions and then we ask the speaker the questions at the end. You can do it live, but it sometimes does break up the content a bit. So it's just something to consider beforehand. I've said there, background, not a huge issue, actually. I think people are a lot more forgiving and understanding of our situation at the moment. I mean, I'm in the corner of my lounge right now, whereas normally I'd be in the office, but can't get into the office at the moment. But try to make sure you have a fairly neutral background, something that's not distracting. You can actually, as I'm sure many of you have seen, have a virtual background, and some of the speakers at this event have had a virtual background. Be aware that if you move around a lot, then it gets very fuzzy and distracting for people. And also, if you have your logo on your background, be aware that it will be flipped, it will be mirrored. So make sure that it's not projecting the wrong way to people. And a critically important point here, follow up with people after the webinar. Don't just do a webinar and then think, excellent, we've done a webinar, now the sales will start rolling in, because it doesn't work like that. Make sure that you're following up with people, asking them for feedback, sending them resources, downloads, whatever it is, just have some sort of follow-up, some continuation of that process to get the best value out of it. And then finally, this is a bit of a present for you, a Christmas present for you, talking about some of the quirks of Zoom. So I'm just going to give you some tips that you will not find, I guarantee you, on any Zoom help page, but there are things to be aware of. Dual screen, if you have two screens set up, do not, under any circumstances, disconnect those screens whilst you're on a Zoom webinar, because it crashes the entire system. Zoom does not like it. If you've ever disconnected a second screen, you know there's that adjustment, and then it sort of flashes on and off. That crashes Zoom. Presenter mode actually as well is, I haven't put it here, but if you use presenter mode, it doesn't work on one screen at the moment on Zoom. I'm not sure why. Something changed a few months ago, but nobody seems to be able to get presenter mode to work. But if you have two screens set up, it does. However, be aware that when you click share screen and you select your screen, when you then put it in presenter mode, it will flip to the other screen. Don't know why, but it's something that happens and you need to be aware of if you're presenting. If you have panelists who are looking to share their screen and they say to you, I can't share my screen, it's saying I'm not allowed, the quickest thing to do is just to make them a co-host and they will have full screen sharing capabilities. If you have a video or sound that you want to play that's on your computer, when you click share screen, there's a little box that says share computer sound in the bottom left-hand corner. Make sure that's ticked, and then that way your attendees will hear what you hear. Next slide is something that trips up a lot of people actually. So when you first click broadcast on a webinar, if you're presenting a PowerPoint, Zoom effectively, as you click broadcast, you are back into the Zoom program rather than being in the PowerPoint program. So if you're using left and right key to change slides, that first slide, sometimes won't work, and that trips up a lot of speakers who suddenly think that their computer's crashed or that the presentation's not working, when actually all it is Zoom doesn't realize that you're still in the PowerPoint presentation. So if that happens, don't panic. Go down to the bottom left corner. There's a little arrow pointing left and right. Just click it there and you'll be back within the presentation. Then you can use your left and right key again. Be aware as well that it's very easy. If someone's watching the webinar on a phone, it's very easy to accidentally raise your hand. So if that happens, and this is where it helps to have someone monitoring the chat box, for example, they can just say, is everything okay? Do you actually want to speak, or did you just tap this accidentally? Are you having technical issues? That can be fixed. But if you're presenting on your own and you see someone raising their hand, it can be a bit distracting because it does flash up. So that's a really quick whistle-stop tour through webinars as a marketing tool. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it valuable, and I'm happy to take any questions now. So yeah, I'm just going to look into the Q&A box. Some positive comments. Thank you very much. That means a lot. Can you take the profile off when presenting a slideshow? So Warren, do you mean in terms of the camera? Are you talking about? I believe so. Yes. Yeah, perfect. So yes, you can. You don't have to. I think I sort of touched on it in terms of the format and the content. You don't have to have the camera on when you're presenting. My advice, if you are using it as lead gen, sorry, it's the first time you've used a webinar, I think it does help to have some sort of facial recognition. You could just put a picture similar to here, like a profile picture of yourself on the slides. But I think if the objective is lead gen, I think you need to have some sort of connection with the audience. I do CPD webinars as well, where it's more about the content. And if you have really good content, it's not always necessary. If you've got lots of graphs and pictures and images and you want people to focus on the screen, then you can certainly turn that off. For a single host webinar, 35-minute max, would you recommend? That's a really good question, Sheila. It depends on the industry and the content. So for example, if there's a mandatory requirement, for example, financial advisors, accountants, vets, doctors, if they have to complete their CPD requirements, then actually the sort of industry standard is 45 minutes of content plus 15 minutes Q&A. If it's more of a lead gen and it's something like this where you haven't spoken to people before, then I would say probably 30 minutes max, 35-minute max. If they're your existing customers or they're people you've connected with on social media, LinkedIn, and you know them a bit better and it's a smaller group, then you can do longer ones that you can get a bit more engagement and interaction with. Perhaps you can use breakout rooms, but actually you can't use breakout rooms on webinars. You can only use that on meetings is another comment to make. A couple of people asking about the recordings. Yes, so this has all been recorded. There's going to be a little bit of video editing going on over the weekend, and then I'll hope to have it up on the Expert Webinars website, hopefully by Monday, but it certainly won't be too late next week. I will send around an email just with some follow-ups. If you want to connect with any of the speakers, then obviously you're more than welcome to. And also the virtual event bag is open. There's, as I mentioned earlier, there's a competition to win a MacBook, a free place on Michael's course or Abby's course yesterday who spoke. There's tons of great content in there, so please do take a look at that. Good morning to you, Warren, from New York. Excellent. Let's have a look. I think that's all the questions that have come in now. So thank you very much for your comments, guys. There will be a short feedback survey as well that pops up. If you could give us a bit of feedback, it'll be massively appreciated. It helps sort of tailor content and just understand what's connected, what's resonated with people. Okay, I'll see some of you in the networking session then. Goodbye.